We are reconvening the regular session. Let's please rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deputy Recorder, please call the roll.
Counselor Salvage,
Here.
Counselor Dykstra,
Here.
Counselor Elfers,
Here.
Counselor Mann,
Present.
Counselor Steinhebel,
Here.
Counselor Workman is absent.
Thank you. Consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussions of these items unless a counselor so requests. In this case, the items will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Agenda appointments. Lebanon City Council agenda, June 14th, 2023. Budget Committee, Lance Caddy, reappointment. Library Advisory Committee, Russell Fish, reappointment. Parks, Trees, Trails Advisory Committee, Jan Manti, thank you. Reappointment. Planning Commission, Mike Miller, alternate. Senior and Disabled Service Advisory Committee, Marilyn Flyer, reappointment. Sherry List, reappointment. Cody Wack, Linda Meredith, and Julie Root. Council minutes, May 10th, 2023, regular and work session, May 24th, 2023, work session, and liquor license, Hangry Solutions LLC, new outlet commercial, full on premise. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
The motion was made by Councilor Savage and seconded by Councilor Olford. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The consent calendar passes 5-0. Tonight, we have a presentation of the Downtown Association.
I've been up here a couple times. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jeannie Davis. I don't have to be doctor here. From the Lebanon Downtown Association, and I brought my sidekick Dayla because I don't want to be up here by myself. So, so we have, I know I've come up here a couple of times to talk about the Lebanon Downtown Association and the funding that we get from the city and kind of what we do. So we brought the presentation, and I know in your packet, there's like a kind of a city report on all of our achievements throughout the last couple of years and what we're looking for in the future. So here's our board members, and I know I gave this to you at the budget hearing as well. So we have a 9-person board. Really what we do, we create experiences downtown. We have events, we have programs, we work in partnerships with critical stakeholders, relationships downtown. We host quite a few events, signature events in collaboration with many of our business owners. We work in advocacy, ensuring that the downtown is priority marketing. So really, how can we bring people downtown through our events and our programs? Building spaces for redeveloping spaces. So our empty buildings downtown, we have the 2nd floor renovation grant that we're doing now with 2 buildings downtown, really looking at those empty spaces and kind of fitting them to what we need downtown. I'm looking at that. And business empowering, small business entrepreneurs. Our economic vitality team is really looking at talking to business owners and business individuals and entrepreneurs about bringing their businesses downtown. We've talked a lot about the financials and that you all haven't seen where we're at. So with our new treasurer, we looked at our 2022 budget. So this is just the income. We budgeted about $64,000 and we actually got 51. So we're pretty close budget to actuals that we got in 2022. Our expenses were about 42,000, and we kind of broke this down in what we spend on concerts in the park, summer bands and brews, our wine walk, and those expenses really come from marketing and printing, a lot of that. On this, we also have movies in the park for 2022, but we didn't do any movies in the park or poker run. So it was just not eliminated from this spreadsheet. Our 2023 budget to actuals as of this week, you can see we budgeted a little bit more because we have the revitalization grant. That was a $200,000 grant that we got, and it's just a change of funds. When the business owner puts in their receipt, the grant funds them. So the grant total right now that we've distributed back out to the business owners is $127,000. And then we put in the $30,000 for the Main Street manager, which we're really hoping we can still get that so we can get a Main Street manager. We're really looking at resumes. We have about 7 or 8 resumes right now for that position, and we would really love to move forward in that process. We do have an office building on Main Street now, so we will share an office space. So we'll have a place for a Main Street manager right downtown. A lot of questions about our filing. So I have filed the 990 filing. It's kind of small, but I filed for the 20, 21, and 22. IRS did reject my filing because now I need to file the 1023, which I have done that. And that is just going to reactivate, hopefully, reactivate our 501c3 status, and then we can refile our 990s. The IRS is behind like a whole year on getting that paperwork through. So I keep calling and trying to find our status on that. With Department of Justice, we are uncompliant with them as well, which you guys can all look at that.
You're what?
The Department of Justice, we're non-compliant with them as well because we don't have all this paperwork completed. So once we get the 1023 filing through IRS, we can refile the 990s and get back on track. So it's all in the works. We're just waiting to hear something back. We are working with United Way right now as our financial, kind of our fiscal agent. If we get donations or anything like that in the interim while we're doing this paperwork, United Way as a sponsor in kind will help us be a fiscal agent. So I won't go through all of the accomplishments that we've done in 2022 because that was in your packet as well. But we continue to do First Fridays, wine walk, downtown trick-or-treating. Family Pride Day is a really big topic, but we're going to move that to September. It's not necessarily a Pride Day. It's really Family Pride Day. So all cultures, all religion, all genders, just come and have fun in the park and really honor our families through Pride Day in September. We will have concerts in the park and summer bands and brews. With summer bands and brews, we're also working with Cafe Rock, and they're going to do a band series as well. So we'll have 2 band series downtown. Our design committee did the community cleanup day right before the Strawberry Festival. We've done one every year, like 2 weeks before the festival, to really clean up downtown and our downtown area for our visitors. We've done a winter photo contest. We have new art boards in the Strawberry Plaza. And as you can see, there's flags down Main Street, that we do that as well. Our Economic Vitality Committee, they really do the spacewalk. So when we have empty buildings, they do virtual spacewalks of that building. So individuals, if they're looking for real estate downtown, they can see what's going on and what we have to offer. And they're working on how to start a business downtown packet for individuals. So lots of work going on in that arena as well. We have set goals for 2023, really just keep creating those unique experiences, continue to enhance downtown streetscape. So how can we look at downtown and really what we want to see downtown? Do we want to see better lighting? Do we want to see more flowers? Do we want to see benches? Really, what do we want the downtown to look like? We want to foster a business-friendly environment, so people want to come downtown, that it's open and it's friendly and it's inviting. And really just keep enhancing that knowledge and perception of Lebanon downtown, the town that friendliness built, right? So how can we bring that to Main Street? How can we bring that downtown? So with all of those goals, we have looked at a few activities that these are added activities that we've already incorporated this year. So the Saturday market in Academy Square, we've had 30 vendors sign up for that. So that's been moving along really nice. Movies in the park are coming up at Ralston Park. We've had 3 sponsors for that with a screen and movies. And the music downtown with Cafe Rock, which I mentioned earlier. We are working with the medical school, surprise, for our Welcome Week for our students. We really want students downtown. So with Welcome Week, we are creating kind of a taste of Lebanon where they can come down and check out the vendors, check out the merchants that are downtown and really kind of get a feel of what we offer on Main Street. So that will be part of their new Welcome Week in August. So with all that in our goals, we really decided we really need to do the research. We really would need to see what individuals want to see downtown. So we've done the business owner survey already, which the results are in your packet as well. Didn't get a lot of responses on that. I sent it out to like 35 Main Street merchants and I got like 7 or 8 responses. So we'll keep working on that. We want to look at community forums. What do individuals in our community want to see when they come downtown? How do they feel when they come downtown? We have once a month, we already have our board meetings. So, and those are open. You guys could come if you choose to come to our board meetings and really help us build the Main Street Association. And then an overall community survey. Last year, we did a photo voice project where everybody could take a picture of whatever they see on Main Street and send it back and really kind of explain from their view what they see. We got a lot of Ralston Park. We didn't get a lot of downtown. So we might try that again. Just what do people see downtown or what would they like to see downtown? So with that, do you have any questions?
Can I add one thing?
Oh, yep.
So I will also add that the merchants are working with the security. So that's a huge piece for downtown coming together and making sure that downtown is secure. And in the past 6 months since this new board took over, I have to give kudos to them for finding those financial pieces that they are working on and making that complete. All the things that are coming together with the new board members, we are working as a team now, which it never happened before. So I personally am proud to be part of one of the board members now. And I think that you can trust that we will take your money and make sure that it's utilized right.
Absolutely.
Yet I have questions.
Yes.
So you've filed with the IRS on your 990s for at least the last 3 years.
Last 3
And you
years.
have copies of those.
Yes.
Because that would be good to see how the money is spent, where it's going, how it's accounted for. And you're not in good standing with the Oregon Department of Justice, correct?
Correct.
And have you filed your CT-12s since 2017?
Nope, not according to the email I got today.
Not according to the website that I checked today, too.
Yes.
So you're not in good standing as an organization, but you are registered with the Secretary of State. But
We
you're
are.
not in good standing to do business with the Department of Justice.
Correct. We are working with United Way to help us be a fiscal agent while we get this straightened out.
Can we get a copy of that letter, fiscal sponsorship?
Sure.
Because if we're going to be giving money to an organization, if it's acting as a nonprofit, but it isn't, and they're using someone else, we need to have that on file.
Do you have the paperwork from when I was president in 2017? So we had all of the filings. We were good to go.
I know. I
Then-
saw the one for 2017 on the
Then
DOJ site.
the new board came in and kind of, it went by the wayside. I am willing to help Jeannie kind of expedite because we kind of went through the same thing in 2013, the same identical thing. So I know that these can be rectified. We just have to
There's a lot
get
of
on
stuff.
it.
That's a
make
lot
sure
of
that happens.
rectifying to get
Absolutely
done,
it is. Absolutely.
Because you're not going to
it
be in good standing as an organization. And for me personally, I find it hard to give money to an organization that's not in good standing until they get there and then support.
That makes
Because
sense.
I understand the using the United Way,
Yes,
which is kind of going around to the back door to get done what you didn't get done on the front door.
and we know as a brand new board that we have and I've told you this a couple times, we have a lot of cleanup to do. Not all of us are aware of all the pieces. So we've grabbed Dela to come back to really help us. Yeah, I wasn't there in 2017, so
No,
so
I
don't know what
understand
we've
that.
dropped and I don't know
It
where we
might,
need to
it might
go.
be good if you could get someone that's really, really good with nonprofits and have them sit down and kind of walk you through getting that done correctly and setting up systems in place so that you don't run into this again.
Yes,
Because you're about to do another CT 12 and another 990 at the end of this month. You're going to have to do another one.
I think the checks and balances will be there from here on out. I do, because we did it before and with a board that did not do what they were doing, what they should have been doing, has laid down to this new board. So I know it's going to take a while. They are going to get back up to snuff, but it can be done.
For me, you're going to have to show me.
And we
It's
will, and we
gone,
will.
it's gone to the wayside for
Totally
so
agree.
long.
I totally agree.
And now you're coming to us saying, yeah, we know we screwed everything up, but give us some more money.
Well,
well,
we
And
will come back with the correct paperwork and we will be in good standing. I
yeah,
guarantee it.
to my way of thinking, I know what we've set up and some of the checks and balances from our side, but I need to see you at least in good standing before in good conscience, I could recommend to the city to give money.
Well, what kind of timeline are we talking to be in good standing? Is that months from now, or are we talking, is that years from now?
not years from now.
I'm realistically, I would say.
The
getting it-
DOJ right now has a 72-hour turnaround on CT 12s to get them posted online and accepted.
So we're in theory 72 hours away from,
They could, yeah, they
Recognize.
just got to do it. They got to dig up the files for the last 5 years and file all of them.
oh, okay.
So I've never run into a situation where it's been that far out of date. So I don't know what the outcome would be.
Well,
I just
do
don't, I know
because
that the,
I know that it can happen because I did it in 2013 when I took over downtown. It was
you
in
did
the
it for
same
5
boat.
years of back
It was
work.
in the same boat.
Yep.
So
Again?
it can be done. It's going to take us a couple of months to get all of these things there,
Again?
but it will be done.
Dayla, I know you. I know you mean well. I drove through Missouri once. You're going to have to show me.
I will show you.
Okay.
Okay.
Because, and the 990s are about 6-month wait right now.
Yeah.
But you should have a copy of the 990s that you could provide to the city manager to take a look at,
I have those.
because that tells a story as well.
Yeah, and we're below that threshold, so we can do the easy postcard 990s, so it's pretty quick. They just didn't,
Not from those
Want them.
numbers I saw.
it looks good when we get that grant funding and we.
It
send
does.
back
And
out,
and
yes.
the terrible part is you have to account for it on your
Absolutely.
990.
So if I may, let's
that'll be
move
next
this
year.
conversation into what you are requesting or this body may be requesting of them before we can move forward with, I assume it's $30,000 in the budget tonight.
It is, so if we can separate things, the budget that will be before you tonight does give appropriations for $30,000 to LDA. You have another piece of business, which is to approve the contract with the LDA for what they need to do in order to get that $30,000. And so we can continue with the money in the budget, but not spend it. And part of what's in that contract is the need for LDA to provide this documentation to the city before the first quarterly payment would be made to LDA, hopefully by later in July. I think trying to recognize, a small organization has cash flow issues. I don't want to hang them up for, your first payment's going to come halfway through the fiscal year if they can get their paperwork done. So you may want to think about what's in that contract in your packet and whether or not the terms in that contract achieve what you want to have happen before money gets turned over. And that is a little bit different than having the money appropriated so that it can be spent when the contract
Right,
terms are
I
met.
understand. Yeah, I know we're going to, basically, it's going to be held in the budget until they meet the agreement under the contract.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question is, are the terms in the contract covering what you need to see?
I think for me, the only other thing I need to see, or I would love to see the 990s to see how the money is spent. You did postcard ones before, so that'll be pretty simple. This year, they're going to have to do the full-blown 990, not the EZ form, because they're over 50. And I would like to see them in good standing with the Department of Justice, because what that tells me is they haven't filed essentially their state version of the 990 for 5 years.
Okay.
And without that, it just doesn't make sense.
So to do that, when we get to the excuse me really quick, when we get to the agreement, yes, then you would want to make that motion for for modifying it.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're good with that.
Yeah. And-
Absolutely.
And the Lebanon Downtown Association is still going to keep doing the events and everything we do downtown. I know we have some cleanup to do. We would love to have a downtown Main Street manager. That would be great to help us keep organized and have all this stuff together. But the events and everything that we've been working on throughout the year, we're going to continue to do that.
I really believe that we need a downtown association, but since you're basically representing the city ad hoc and you're getting city money, we have to absolutely, without a doubt, be transparent about where the money's going, how it's being used, and that it's fully accountable for.
Yes.
And right now, I'm not convinced of that in its current form. There's too much work to be done.
Agreed.
Agreed.
But once you get it going, it's great for downtown. We just need to make sure it's right. And someone who's done 990s, I feel your pain, but sorry.
Can you help?
Is there any other questions from the council? Mr. Nassar, do you have something to add? They did your job for you? I figure I'd give you the opportunity. You're standing there, so. If there's no other questions, I thank you for your brief, and we'll be revisiting us on agenda number 8 tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll be moving into public comments. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony card or comment card prior to speaking and handed it to the city recorder. Looks like that portion's already been done. Each citizen will be provided up to 5 minutes to provide comment to council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions. The city recorder will accept and distribute written comments at the speaker's request. We have a ton. You have 5 minutes. If you can finish it up quicker in 5 minutes, it'll make the process run a little bit faster, but you will get your 5 minutes. The way this works, when you come up, after I call your name, you'll be seated, and I will start the 5-minute clock. When it's green, you're good. When it turns yellow, you got 1 minute, and when it turns red, I will gavel you. I will stop because we have a lot of people to hear. So please have concise, to the point comments. The other thing is wards. We'd love to hear what ward you're from on these cards. And I will ask you when you come up if it's not on here, because then it gives opportunity for our council people to know that you're in their ward. Okay, and they can hear your concerns. So, okay, let's start this. Judy Artner. And if you could tell us what ward when you get up here.
I don't know.
There's a map. There's a map right there, but go ahead and sit down and let's get this going.
Okay. So all of these comments are about what was on the cards. I mean, there's no start here where you're going to kick it off and tell us what this is about.
No, it's just, this is public comment. This is not on the agenda.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm commenting on the issue of taking books out of the library. And for me, if somebody doesn't like a book that's in the library, they don't check it out. And if I happen to want to see the content of that book in the library, then I will check it out. There's books in the library I don't like either because I think they're not factually correct or they have a position I don't like. But somebody wants to read it. They have the right to check it out if they want to. If I don't want to read it, I won't check it out. It's either everybody gets to take books out of the library or nobody gets to take books out of the library because there's such a diversity of opinions and desires in the community. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Ford. Like I said, this is not on the agenda. This is public comments, so it's impromptu.
I'm here to comment because it had come to my attention that there was somebody who was concerned about sexual materials in the library. I wanted to support the library. First of all, I taught psychology for 30 years in various community colleges and often taught human sexuality, lifespan development, and human relations. I went online today and just typed in comprehensive sexual education. And what came up was the American Academy of Pediatrics had an article on the importance of access to comprehensive education. So part of my concern about why somebody is trying to get books taken out of the library is because people who are doctors who work with children are saying how important it is to have comprehensive education. Youth need developmentally appropriate information about their sexuality and how it relates to their bodies, community, culture, society, mental health, and relationships with family and peers and romantic partners. The AA supports broad access to comprehensive sex education, where all children and adolescents have access to developmentally appropriate evidence-based education that provides the knowledge they need. That's from the Academy. I also wanted to share my own personal experiences that teaching human sexuality, I'd often give out informal surveys at the beginning of each course. I only stopped teaching in 2019. And even at that age and stage, when I would ask students at the beginning of the semester, what grade were you in when you got sex education? It was all over the map between 4th grade on up to never. When I asked people about, was it adequate? 1/3 of them would say no, someone would say neutral. Very few of them had very good things to say about high school sex education. I also asked people about their first sexual experiences. So I got a lot of information informally from students. And the most telling thing though to me was after talking about what sex education they got in schools, I asked a student, all the students, what grade were you in when you had the sex education talk with your parents? Frequently, it was 30 to 40%, and often it was 50% said today. well, 4 years ago, that their parents had never talked to them. So I had students in my class 4 years ago who had never had public education, sex education, and had never talked to their parents. So that's why I think it's so important. And then the last point I want to make is because of those first 2 points, pediatrics people are saying comprehensive sex education is important. Secondly, my experience is that even in this current stage, a lot of people are still not getting education they need. Therefore, I would strongly request that the council support our library and having materials there that anyone who wants to can check out the information, since for a lot of people it's sadly missing.
Thank you. What ward are you in, sir? What ward?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you. Wendy Nielsen, Ward 2. Yeah, Lauren Murtry will be up next. Thank you.
My name is Venka Nilsson, AKA Wendy, and I'm here to urge you not to ban any book from the public library. These books were placed in a children's library section because of age appropriateness. No one is forcing anyone to look at these books or to check them out, but the option must be there to do so. Freedom of speech is something we don't always think about because it is so basic. We can't shout fire in a crowded theater or promote violence, however. Conversely, offensiveness is not an exception to this freedom. Additionally, I think it's up to the parent to parent and not the public library. Since then, the library's mission statement on equal access would be undermined. Books are a written form of freedom of speech and should never be banned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lauren Murtry. You need to come forward, ma'am, so we can get it on the record, please. And next up will be Jennifer Moody. Do you know what ward you're in, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I am not a resident of the city
Okay.
of Lebanon. However, my husband was in business for many years and we owned property. And in that respect, I was allowed to use the library as a property owner and taxpayer. I used the library extensively in days past, and I really feel that books should not be censored for the general public. I feel they should be available for everyone's use, and each person should be allowed to monitor their own choice of reading material. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jennifer Moody, and after that it'll be Bill Sullivan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President, councilors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jennifer Moody. I'm part of Ward 1, and I'm a parent of 2 children who grew up in this community and graduated from Lebanon High School. You had a constituent come before you last month to ask to ban books from the children's section of the Lebanon Public Library. And she said, the community doesn't want it. I've talked to a lot of people and the community doesn't want it. And I'm here to say I'm part of this community and she does not speak for me. I used to think that kids were born as little blank slates and that they would take on the characteristics of whatever parenting you poured into them because that's what they would do. This was before I had children. And then I realized, no, that's not the way it works because from birth, they have different needs, different temperaments, and different development schedules. There is no one size fits all when it comes to helping kids learn and grow. I have no objection to that constituent or anyone else making choices about what books their children should read. I have a lot of objections for her deciding my parental choices for me. That is a one-size-all-fits approach. That is idea policing. And that flies in the face of what public is supposed to mean. I will freely admit that I have not read the books that this constituent is objecting to. I don't even know their titles, and I did not see their covers. I would like to, because that would help me understand what the objections might be. But in the testimony, she said they were geared to start at 10-year-olds. That is not too early to start learning about your body. My daughters got their periods at 10. I was 11. You need to know what's going on. Based on the pictures she was talking about in her testimony, I have to wonder, what is so shameful about the human body? Little girls have vaginas, and somehow it's wrong for them to be aware of this? People masturbate. Children masturbate. And some people may feel that acknowledging this is shameful and unnatural and wrong, but they do not speak for me. I would urge anyone who's concerned about the material in a library to read it first, and then to consider that material from the perspective of a child who is unsure of their identity or questioning how their body works, or even is simply curious. Or consider it from the perspective of a parent of a child who is looking for answers. And then consider it from the fact that not everyone has a supportive family. And some kids need to get that information from the library because they can't get it anywhere else. And that's what library books represent. They represent information. Nudity in itself is not obscene. Sexual conduct in itself is not obscene, no matter what body types are taking part in that conduct. You know, the main thing I find objectionable about this discussion is that there is apparently, according to the testimony, a book in the children's section of the Lebanon Public Library with an underlying message that says, you can be whatever you want to be and your family should support you. And someone came here to protest that. That is the message that I want, that this member of the community wants our library to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bill Sullivan, and after that it'll be Timothy Trahan. Mr. Sullivan, what ward do you reside in?
From Wayne's.
Okay.
Evening, Mayor, Council. I come before you to stand behind you to tell you something I know nothing about. Sex is the greatest pleasure of all. Mother Nature makes errors in all creatures in life. What you do is all right with me behind closed doors, but don't cram it down my throat. It's not my cup of tea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Timothy Trahan, and after that, it's James Glover. Is that correct? I think. Okay. Sometimes I have trouble reading the cards, so. And what ward, Mr. Trahan?
I guess I would say all.
All?
All.
These are police officers.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to read a letter, and I have an associate who will continue because I probably will
Can you
not.
move the mic closer?
I'll probably not finish in 5 minutes, so the next person in line will take over. I'm Timothy Trahan, the president of the Lebanon Police Association.
Get close, Tim.
Hold the mic closer. There you go.
You scoot that. There you go.
How's that?
Better.
Members of the council, I, along with the Lebanon Police Association, approach after much reflection, thought, and frustration. We have served the city of Lebanon for lengths of time ranging from years to decades. No matter the rapid growth of Lebanon with all the staffing stretched, paper thin, longstanding employees of the Lebanon Police Department have continued to serve faithfully. We have seen multiple finance directors and payroll specialists come and go over the last few years. What has always remained, unfortunately, is the constant wonder and fear of the fact that our paychecks may not be correct. I and the association even wonder if our pay was right to begin with. In 2020, police employees were notified by the finance director at that time that some of us were overpaid due to calculation errors over the span of 1 year. Some employees were notified that they owed as little as tens of dollars, and others were told they owed hundreds or thousands of dollars. The final line from that email notice stated, in effect, the problem had been identified, fixed, and the finance director was confident it would never happen again. Presently, in 2023, we find ourselves in an identical situation. The city recently notified some of us that we owed hundreds of dollars and in some cases thousands of dollars again due to calculation errors, this time over the span of a month and a half. What takes this most recent error to a new level of frustration for us is that we now feel misled, deceived, and mistreated. The Lebanon Police Association was approached toward the end of 2022 by the city requesting ADP be used as our new payroll software. The association was approached due to the fact that the city wished to move to a biweekly paycheck system with the promise that moving to ADP would fix any and all concern, distrust, and problems the previous software system Springbrook supposedly presented. As an association, we are all leery and cautious of this switch. An employee of 15 years who no longer works here even made a comment that going to a biweekly pay system would present twice the opportunity for the city to make errors in our paychecks in a year. We brought up many concerns to the current finance staff. We were told not to be concerned and this move would solve everyone's problems. A pay raise was even dangled in front of us to convince us to agree to move to the ADP. We ultimately agreed. Within the first 2 pay periods, association members noticed fluctuations in our paychecks, which we brought to the city's attention. At that time, we were told the errors were just the cost of implementing a new payroll system and changes that would be made by the city to correct this. Over the course of 3 pay periods in March and April, more fluctuations were noticed by the members, and again, concerns were brought to the city about this. The city acknowledged they noticed these errors in April. We were told they were fixed immediately. Weeks later, association members were served notice of overpayment, again, in some cases in the thousands of dollars. The current finance director, Brandon Nish, proposed a meeting with the Lebanon Police Association on June 7, which was open to everyone. Present at the meeting was Nancy Brewer, Angela Soulsby, Brandon Nish, Lebanon Police Administration, and the Lebanon Police Association in the form of the Teamsters representative Michael Mann, myself, and 3 other association members. The meeting began as a presentation by Finance Director Brandon Nish, where he began with an apology and willingness to do whatever he needed to do to make this right. Brandon said he will make it as easy as he can for us, explaining there were errors in calculation that happened. Brandon thoroughly explained and expressed his desire to ensure our paychecks are correct and demonstrated to us the steps he was taking to rectify the problem. We learned an Excel spreadsheet was developed to double check the calculations being done by ADP, effectively doubling the workload of the finance department. It cannot be stressed enough the effort Brandon Nish has displayed in trying to correct these problems. Brandon has showed up at our offices to meet us in person and explain what went wrong with individual paychecks. Brandon appears to have been as responsive as possible or permitted to help association members understand what was wrong. Nancy, Brandon, and Angela made statements in this meeting that are shocking and concerning to us. Brandon expressed in front of the entire meeting his job was on the line. We were told ADP was not meant for calculations and incentives and premium pay that are obligated according to our contract, yet the decision was made to move to this company anyway. Brandon told us that public employers and ADP don't work together. We stressed that the association wants to make sure paychecks are right, and Nancy said, quote, "We would rather your paycheck be correct too." Problems between ADP and the city were discussed in the development and implementation stages of this transition we as employees were unaware of. It was explained ADP provided more than one ADP developer for their build team, with the final programmer having to develop his own special calculation for incentives and premiums. This led to the apparent confusion between ADP and the city whenever a new problem, such as an employee being unable to cash out comp pay in the employee ADP interface surfaced. Even a week before the meeting, a new calculation was found not to be in ADP's system in regards to court overtime. New issues seem to arise constantly. As recently as this week, it was discovered that year-to-date calculations were not recorded properly or only recorded intermittently on paychecks.
Continue, sir.
From what we could understand through this, though the city blamed ADP for these errors, it seemed as if ADP was having a hard time conducting payroll the way the city wished it be calculated. The city admitted to largely having problems with the ADP build team, yet still decided to launch the program and transition payroll from the old program. In other words, the city decided to launch the new payroll system knowing fully there were problems. The city expressed to the association ADP was to blame for the woes of the association members. The city was unclear as to how responsive ADP was to continually noticed errors whenever they were discovered. At the time of this meeting, the city was still awaiting a reply from ADP. Furthermore, the association learned that the city penned repayment emails to association members prior to even reaching out to ADP about the errors ADP supposedly made. It was made crystal clear the most recent overpayment issue was a fault of ADP almost exclusively. It seems the association that transitioning to ADP was a Hail Mary of sorts that has presented more problems than solution. If one knows about problems with the plan yet chooses to follow through and go forward with the plan, does this not constitute negligence? Whose idea was this and how are they going to be held responsible? How much did the city of Lebanon pay ADP for their payroll system that apparently does not fit our organization? These are questions that we hope to be on the council members' minds. Payroll issues go beyond the current problems with ADP. Lebanon has a historical problem with keeping payroll current with individual personnel incentive raises such as pay as a field training officer, which is incentive dependent on acting in that capacity. Various personnel over the last several years have either not been paid for that incentive for several months, and others have been paid the incentive for months after acting in that capacity was completed. This is just one example of payroll errors seemingly endemic to the city of Lebanon. Ultimately, none of our association members are payroll experts, accountants, or finance personnel. We've been told ad nauseum for years now to keep an eye on our pay stubs for accuracy. This has caused us undue stress and an expectation to fulfill an obligation we are not qualified for. Regardless, association members are seemingly held responsible for tabulating our own pay rate correctly. One of our newest employees in dispatch did not receive the first paycheck via direct deposit. I was just informed that the same employee's paycheck did not direct deposit again this past Friday. The employee was told the problem was fixed after the first time. This has undoubtedly made a great impression on the level of professionalism at City Hall, yet current and tenured employees know this to be consistent with our experience historically. It should be noted in that case, in the latter case, the current finance director, Brandon Nish, drove to meet that employee in person and hand them their paycheck. To the association and myself, it seems no matter how many times we are told payroll is finally figured out and fixed, more issues arise. In 2020, the association had doubts that the amount of the city informed us we owed were even correct to begin with. Presently, we have more doubts than ever. It's a joke amongst some association members that they have a special savings account to pay out from when the city periodically contacts them about overpayment. So that the council is aware, the association has asked for some parameters and understanding from the city for repaying the overpaid amounts per employee since this was discovered. Per an email from the city manager last week, the city manager is prepared to file small claims lawsuits against individual association members if the association does not come to an agreement with the city. The statement appears to be a threat of retaliation to the association's demand of clarification and transparency. At the same meeting, the city even asked the association point blank for suggestion and answers on how to fix the payroll, as if we were accountants and payroll specialists ourselves. Consistent problems with payroll seems to be a problem endemic exclusively to Lebanon. We know of no law enforcement agency in the area who have had any problems similar in caliber to the Lebanon Police Association contract is no more complicated than incentive and premium pay than surrounding agencies. The city has cycled through multiple finance directors, personnel, and payroll programs. No member of the association trusts anything coming from City Hall regarding payroll. We have not and will not trust any statement as to the calculation of underpayment, overpayment, or even if we are told we are being paid correctly. All of us expect this to happen again, no matter what or who is to blame the next time it happens. The association believes that the city management outside of the police department made a detrimental choice in selecting and implementing ADP without a better vetting of the system and its capabilities. The association is asking that those who push the ADP selection and implementation be held accountable. The association believes there is no excuse for payroll being mismanaged at all, much less for years. As referenced before, the association does want to acknowledge the hard work and effort displayed by Brandon Nish in trying to explain the situations and make corrections for the members.
Thank you. Anything from council?
Can we get a copy of that?
I was going to say, ask for a copy for our records.
I just want to thank them. I can see there's a number of officers here tonight, not just the ones that came forward to speak today. We've talked about ADP obviously in the past quite a bit.
Sure.
This is another point of evidence that we have a serious and deep problem with ADP and it needs to be fixed in, I don't know what my lane is, but I want it fixed now. I want it fixed today. I want it fixed now. Let's pay these officers correctly and let's retain our officers. I don't know how this is at the point of ridiculous. We're 6 months in and we can't get this thing to work. So for what it's worth out of my mouth, I want it fixed. That's my comment on that.
I agree.
Bringing this up for quite a while, and you just can't seem to make any headway, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate you guys coming and maybe we could have discussion on this later in the council
Comments?
councilor
would
comments, just to
love
kind
to
of
do
get
that.
a roundtable idea where we're at.
Okay.
Any other? Well, I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are you James, I take it? James, okay.
Yeah, that's
You don't, okay, thank you. Next up is Linda Zyrick, and after that, it's Tammy Cochran. Linda's from Ward 2.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Linda Ziedrick. I live at 412 East Ash Street, and I am a book author. Although I've worked in book publishing my entire adult life, I've never had the honor of being censored. And being censored would be an honor because many of the books that are banned are really fine, classics even. Having a book ban would also be a boon for my income because banning books from libraries and schools always increases sales. Despite those benefits of censorship, I resent that Hannah On thinks she can dictate to the people of Lebanon what books we can and can't have in our library. I hope that you're wise enough to understand that freedom of expression, speaking, writing, and reading is basic and essential to our democracy. I hope you are wise enough to pay no mind to Hannah On, who doesn't even live in Lebanon and so should have no say at all over what books are in our library and where they are shelved. Besides, we have professional librarians to make those decisions, and they do an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. On deck is Mary Cook.
This on? Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm here, Tammy Cockrum, I live in Ward 1. I'm here on behalf of Sarah Jameson, who has requested that I come and read her statement for her, and I don't know what ward she lives in. So here it is. Dear Mayor, Jacola, and council members, thank you for the opportunity to make my voice heard at this meeting, and thank you for allowing Tammy Cockrum, me, to read this statement for me, Sarah. As a retired teacher of writing at Oregon State University, as well as a library reference clerk at Josephine County Public Library in Grants Pass, Oregon, and as an avid reader myself, I would urge you not to embark on the mistaken path of banning books or allowing instructing someone else to ban books at the city library. Parents are well within their rights to supervise what their children read. They are not within their rights to supervise or restrict what I or others read, nor are they permitted by the U.S. Constitution from forcing their own religious beliefs on others. Freedom of expression is a fundamental American right. Book banning and other forms of censorship violate our right to exchange ideas. The public library serves the whole Lebanon community, not just some groups. Books about health and science are not pornography. Neither is Michelangelo's famous sculpture of David in Florence, even if that famous figure from the Bible is portrayed nude. Children and students need to learn from parents, teachers, librarians, etc., how to analyze and assess a book to see whether it may be trustworthy or appropriate for them. This is called information literacy, a skill students should be learning from middle school to college. People who have the skills to be able to tell for themselves a suitable reading level, suitable content, credible author and publisher, etc., are able to protect themselves from the mass of misinformation in the world. Thank you for listening. Sarah Jameson.
Thank you so much. Mary Cook, and then after that, it's Christian Stagg. Mary's from Ward 3.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. I have not prepared any thing to say today, except that I am opposed to book banning. And I wanted to let you know that because someone has spoken that we should ban books, and I just don't agree with it. So that's all I wanted to say. I am opposed to book banning. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kristen Stagg, and then after that, it'll be Laura Lovell, sorry.
Hello, I'm Kristen Stagg. I'm from Ward 1. I've lived in Lebanon for over almost 27 years now, or 26 years now, and I have 2 children and 4 bio grandchildren and 6 step grandchildren myself. My children attended school here. My children attended school through high school. What's that? Oh, I thought I heard something. I have an MSW, and I've worked in mental health for over 27 years with marginalized population, children, adolescents, and families. I'm just going to piggyback what Lauren said for that part of it. Beyond that, though, I wanted to talk about the American Library Association identifying that the First Amendment prevents public institutions from compromising individuals' First Amendment freedoms by establishing a framework that defines critical rights and responsibilities regarding free expression and the freedom of belief. The First Amendment protects the right to exercise those freedoms, and it advocates respect for the right of others to do the same. Rather than engaging in censorship and repression to advance one's values and beliefs, Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis counsels persons living in the United States to resolve their difference in values and belief by resort to more speech, not enforced silence. By the virtue of the 14th Amendment, the First Amendment's constitutional right of free speech and intellectual freedom also applies to state and local governments. Government agency and government officials are forbidden from regulating or restricting speech or other expression based on its content or viewpoint. I'm just going to end there, and I just would like to express that I also don't support book banning or information gatekeeping or censorship in any way that limits families from access to whatever their needs may be.
Okay, thank you so much. Laura Lovell, and then it'll be followed up by Helen Rounsaville. And Laura, what ward are you from?
Hi, I am from Ward 2.
Okay, thank you.
I came to talk today about the book banning. I believe that this removal of books from our library would be a complete violation of our First Amendment right to freedom of speech. The only books being targeted are LGBT books, and removing these books would be blatant discrimination. There are plenty of books in the Lebanon Library with themes that aren't appropriate for children. All those books are labeled as such. While I personally do not believe that LGBT themes in books are inappropriate, that is not my decision to make for your individual families, just as it is not your right to determine what books I have access to through my public library. Regardless of how you feel about the content of those books, it should not be anyone's decision what kind of materials the public library offers. If you do not want your children reading books featuring LGBT themes, then don't let them read those books. It is your right as a parent to decide what content you let your children have access to, and I respect your decisions. However, it is a slippery slope to ban books. Censorship is serious. No one is cramming anything down your throat. If you don't want to read these books, then don't. Please keep in mind our basic rights as citizens of the United States rather than your personal beliefs in making your decision, as it would be unconstitutional to remove these or any other books from our library. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak.
Thank you. What ward are you from?
I am from Ward 2.
2. And up after that is Kathleen Bevins.
My name is Helen Rounsaville, and as a queer teen of our community, I am deeply upset by the notion of banning queer inclusive sex ed books in our community, as this action will directly affect the education of me and many others like me. The public library is a place meant for everyone. By banning books that some personally do not agree with, you are violating this community's right to intellectual freedom. The library is providing safe resources on sexual education to young adults. These books are not being marketed towards children, as they are in the young adult section and are clearly marked for mature ages of 16 and up. These books ensure that teens will have somewhere to safely learn about their bodies without the dangerous misinformation that can be spread online. If someone does not want their teens to be reading these books, it is their right as a parent to accompany their teens to the library and monitor the books that they are checking out. However, you do not have the right to make that decision for all members of our community. Each member of the community has the right to educational books. The beliefs of no single person or group should be allowed to override the choice and intellectual freedom of others. The Lebanon Library Public has been employing employees that are experienced and professional librarians, and they have been trusted by generations of our community. The members of this community deserve to not have their intellectual freedom and access to knowledge be restricted, no matter their age, religion, beliefs, sexual orientations, or gender. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kathleen Bevins. After that, it's Ann. I'm having trouble reading the writing. Bertner. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Blevins, and I have lived in Lebanon 53 years. I was a media specialist with the Lebanon Public Schools for 30 years, and then I worked part-time for the Lebanon Public Library for another 9 years. When we talk about books with emotional subjects like sex, it's easy to forget a basic fact. Public schools and public libraries, by the very name public, are funded by all the taxpayers in that community. Because all taxpayers are contributing, you have to serve all the taxpayers in that community. You cannot serve one small group to the detriment of the others. Some years ago, a mother came to me and asked me to remove all the Christmas books from a library because her family didn't celebrate Christmas. I said, no, we can't do that. There are many families here in Lebanon who enjoy reading Christmas stories. We can't pull them all to suit your faith. But what you can do is come to the library with your child. Be involved. Talk to your child about what kinds of things you like in books. Help them make sure they pick out books that your family's going to be comfortable with. Public libraries, I can assure you, encourage parents to come with their children to the library. You can interact with your child in a wonderful place, full of information and great stories. And it's good to remember, while you are the person who can help your child choose books that are right for your family, you do not have the right to choose what other families can read. Thank you.
Thank you. She was from Ward 3. And after that, it's Andy and Marilyn Belcher.
Hello, my name is Ann Bugert, and I'm here to advocate for or against banning books in the Lebanon Public Library. I feel as if the people that have tried to ban the books may be under the impression that that one of America's most fundamental rights is the right to share information, whether you deem it dangerous or inappropriate. I also feel as if you don't want your child to read it. You can choose not to have your child to read those kinds of books, but it's not your decision to stop all children from reading informational books about their bodies. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Again, he was Ward 3.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How about you? Good. My name is Marilyn Belcher. We, my husband Andy Belcher and I, have lived in Lebanon since 1971. We raised 3 children in this community and are retired school teachers from the Lebanon Public Schools. And I must say, it was so nice to see Officer Timothy Trahan, my 3rd graders, read so well. I speak for both Andy and me. We are here on behalf of the Lebanon Public Library and for the resources it professionally provides for all of our town citizens. Too often, the people who know that book banning and censorship is wrong in a free society stay silent. And so we are here to be that voice, as are the others. Today is Flag Day, and like our public library, it belongs to all of us. One of the classic premises of totalitarianism is the banning of books. We were warned more than half a century ago about this undoing, about the importance of freedom of expression, both for those we agree with or disagree. The banning of books is the banning of free thought, and we need to protect the values of a free society. I shouldn't have to read the First Amendment to our Constitution. If someone holds a very absolute belief because of their religion, that is fine, and that is legal in our democracy. But they are not entitled to censor my belief or my values. The books in our public libraries are selected based on reviews and recommendations from professional journals. And this is especially true about sensitive issues. Parents have the right to not allow their child to check out a certain book. There are also parents and children who have requested books on sensitive subjects, and that is their right to do so. These resources serve a vital need for some of our families. There is a specific process to follow if someone wants to challenge a book, and that process needs to be followed. The conflict over LGBTQ+ rights is simmering loudly. There is a subversive and well-funded attempt in this nation to influence attitudes, which helps create very powerful wedge issues that serve to further divide us as a town, as a county, as a country. And this attempt to ban books in our public libraries only further undermines our democracy. We will never agree on everything, but at least we can hope to agree on the ideal of freedom. Fear is a great motivator. Our natural fears must not decimate our public institutions and undermine the public trust. Thank you.
Thank you. They're Ward 1. Jenny Lynch. Hannah On will be up after that.
Hi, thank you for hearing me. I'm here to speak against book banning. I'm not sure what ward I am. I'm in Michelle's ward, whatever number that, 3. It's a nice word. Anyways, I'm against book banning. My mother died when I was very young, and it was up to my shy Catholic boys' school educated father to give me the birds and the bees talk. And he was so embarrassed. He sort of asked me what I knew, which was just about nothing. And then somehow the conversation stopped. It would have been really great if some of the books that are now available, he would have had access to give me and to have gotten me the information he felt I needed without being embarrassed. So I hope we don't ban books. Facts are good. If, most kids are going to get some facts and some not so factual things off the internet. So please don't ban the books. Thank you.
Thank you. Hannah? Do you know what ward you're in?
I am in Ward 2.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Hannah On, and I'm afraid all this fuss is about me. So hi. I am also not for book banning or censorship. I'm sure that's shocking to most people in this room. I'm not for book banning, censorship, and I am giddy at the thought of thinking that we could live in a society where we have a freedom of ideas and we can disagree respectfully. And I think that semi-confidently. I think most people in this room are capable of doing that, which is very encouraging. And despite what I heard, it's hard to sit in a seat where people are claiming that you believe something you don't, but I get it. I get it. I am not asking for a book ban, nor am I asking for sex ed reform. I think that was something else that was toyed with. I don't necessarily want to read all the sex ed books in the library, and I haven't. That's also not my goal. But in the name of open ideas and disagreeing respectfully, let's put some pressure on a few things. The first is age appropriateness. So when we're talking about minors, we're talking about what might be appropriate for them. Words that were used were suitable, yeah, and age appropriate. I 110% agree with that. However, there are books in our library that are not age appropriate. They are not. We have clinicians in our town that would agree with that. And if a parent wants their child to have access to that, I believe they should. Again, I'm not asking for a book ban. I think that it would be better serving our community if those books were labeled clearly. I loved the Christmas tree example. I loved that example because as of right now, these books are not clearly labeled. So a child would come across them almost happenstantially. And the reason why I say that is because a child is not an adult. They're not going to go to the computer and go, books about vaginas, which vaginas don't scare me. That was another funny thing. So they're not going to do that. Kids go and they pick books based on what? Well, those of us that have kids, we know they pick books based on color, picture, what does the cover look like? And I mean, some of us adults still do that, right? If we're not lying. I think it would be more appropriate that these books have their own category or that they be appropriately labeled so they can be accessed intentionally because some of this information is needed by some kids. And we've heard many of those stories today. People need this information. I'm not denying that. What I am saying is that it needs to be put in its own section, clearly labeled, and accessed intentionally. Another point that I wanted to address is the freedom of ideas. Love it. We do not have to believe the same thing. We do not have to agree. I love that. There's a problem with that. There's multiple books which members of your community are here to read to you that state transgenderism and that ideology is fact. And there are books in our library that say, if you do not agree with this, that you're a bad human. And I wonder why we have those books. Because if we are pro for having a freedom of ideas, then why are we demonizing the other idea? That doesn't sound free and open to me. The other point too was choice of access, right? So a parent can come along their child and choose to help them access that book. Well, as it is right now, the parent's not really sure what we're hovering. You pull that, we're like, I don't know, let me read the back cover. That's kind of a murky area because you're not really aware of what you're accessing until you pull the book and you open it up and you read it, right? Lastly, I just wanted to state why I was going to be here to state in the first place. It's location. Let's move the books so they're accessed intentionally, and the system in which we're spending grant funds. It's one person that's deciding how these grant funds are purchased. And there's multiple people with differentiating ideas here that could have input on what is purchased with grant funds. Next is going to be members of the community to read books to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next up is Tyler Grove. After that, it'll be Ashley Cowgill. And Tyler, what ward are you in? 3? Thank you.
Good evening, counselors. Thanks for the time to be here. I know a handful of you, some of you I don't know yet. I've been working with youth and kids in our community for 15 years, many of them coming from rough backgrounds, rough situations, and I've kind of given over the last decade to helping those kids out from a diverse set of background issues, like all types of things. I've kind of given most of my life living in Lebanon to those kids. And I'm just going to read a book, a piece of a book today. It's called Beyond Magenta, Transgender teens speak out. And a lot of these kids in these stories are telling their testimonies, I guess, of coming from similar, really rough backgrounds, really rough situations. And what all these kids are looking for is guidance and hope and support. And all of these testimonials are that they found that in sexually transitioning. But the main thing I wanted to focus on was just some of what I was reading in here was really explicit sexual behavior of like 6 and 7-year-olds. And this is in the youth section of our library. And that was my concern. I have a daughter that'll be 7 next month. She loves the library. She loves swimming. She's probably swimming right now. But this is just information of a story about a 6 and 7-year-old, a 6-year-old that turned 7 throughout the story. And I just wanted to read that and consider, is this for, it is like Hannah said, like I'm against book banning as well. Is this appropriate for the kids section of the library, or could there be a spot that is more appropriate for it while it's still available to anybody that wants it, where my daughter's not going to pull it off the shelf and start reading about what I'm about to read to you. But it's a sad story, so I'll probably spend the remainder of my time reading it. This is when this child was 6 years old. My mother had nothing to do with me. She was not in the picture. She was living in the house, but she'd go in and out. She didn't pay attention to me. I thought she didn't care about me. I think the reason why I wore girls' clothes, my mother's clothes, was to have a bond with her. My mother was an alcoholic. She was on drugs. She was a prostitute, and she also had lupus. She taught me some things, but basically she left me with my grandmother. I wanted to have a bond with her, and I also wanted to be a girl. I loved the idea of being pretty, of being a princess. I love the idea of Barbie and beauty. I just liked dresses, but a lot of people didn't approve it. This is a biological boy. Excuse me. My grandmother thought I needed help. Help, of course I needed help. I was not being cared for. What person who isn't cared for doesn't need help? There had to be an excuse to get help from the government. First, they put me in a hospital. I was in my hospital clothes all the way down, a gown with an opening back. I liked that. There was this girl there. I thought about that guy in my neighborhood telling me that girls have vaginas. I looked at her and I thought, this must be a girl. So I went up to her and told her I liked her and she liked me. We started kissing. I picked up her skirt and looked in her underwear. Where's your dick? What's a dick? You don't have what I have. Well, what do I have? I put my hand down there in her pants and felt this little hole kind of thing. I got scared and ran off. I was so scared I didn't know what to do. I sure didn't hang around her no more. Then one day, when I was with my mother, or my grandmother, or maybe it was a social worker, I don't remember, I said, I want to have my dick cut off because I want to be a girl. The first or second grade is when things started getting pretty weird. I was 7 at the time, living at home and going to a new school in a black community. I'm not racist, but when it comes to queer people, black people are very ghetto. As I would say, in my low-income community, people had no education and no jobs. They were grown-ups acting like children. The adults, not the children, made fun of me when I wore my wigs. I wore girl boots, I wore heels, I wore stilettos. The kids wouldn't say much to me, but the adults were not afraid to say things to me. You're a little boy.
30 seconds.
What's going on with you? You're not opposed to wearing girls' clothes? Take that shit off, boy. And they laughed. Or when they'd see me, they were like, come on, girl, see this. I was extremely mature. I used to kiss other guys. I would perform oral sex on them. I liked it. I loved oral sex. I was sexually mature. Granted, this is a 7-year-old. I used to love making out with girls and giving oral sex. Everybody was encouraging me. Adult men, perverts, and pedophiles would hit on me. I'd see guys giving me a look, and it kind of creeped me out. They would touch themselves and say, come here, sweetie.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to clarify that is in the young adult section, in the sex ed section of there. And if we do ban it in Lebanon, we are part of the library consortium, and there are 4 within the library consortium. And anyone with a Lebanon library card can check out the book in Albany, Scioto, Sweet Home, and Harrisburg as well. So I just think it's important to have the context of where it is located in the
It's
library.
with all the graphic novels, with the,
in the
like
young
Party
adult
Boys
sex ed section.
for minors.
Based on the 3.0.
So it's for minors, and I'm just saying if it could be rightly labeled, would be helpful, I think, for, it's a story about 6 and 7-year-olds giving head. So I think this.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Ashley Cowgill, and after that it'll be Tanya Murray.
My name is Ashley Cowgill. I'm a mom and a resident of Lebanon, Oregon, and I take my children weekly to the local public library. I've had my head in the sand and turned a blind eye to the books that are at the fingertips of our community's children, but now that they have been opened, I don't plan on closing them anytime soon. As adults, it's our job to fight and protect this generation of children's hearts and minds. I'm going to be reading to you from a book published as a children's book, clearly stated on the back. That it is found in the young adult section of our library. Please think about your children or your grandchildren while I read this. Can you please provide the title of the book, ma'am? It's called Here and Queer. Thank you. Consider this list to be a menu, like at a restaurant. This menu is a list of possible choices. You could order a few different courses, try some of your partner's dishes, and you can get something different next time. Oral sex, stimulating your partner's genitals with your mouth, lips, or tongue. Other words you might hear for different versions of this include going down on someone, eating someone out, giving a blowjob, or rimming, among others. Digital penetration, otherwise known as fingering. Anytime someone is penetrating someone else with their fingers, two people using their hands to stimulate each other's genitals at the same time is known as mutual masturbation. Penetrative vaginal sex, any sex that involves putting something into your vagina or somebody else's vagina, including sex toys or a penis. Penetrative anal sex, similar to penetrative vaginal sex, but involving someone's anus. Penetrative non-penetrative sex. This might include things like like dry humping or hand jobs, sex where nothing is going inside or anyone else. Scissoring. Okay, so scissoring is technically a form of non-penetrative sex. I'm giving it its own section because it's the most talked about sex act position for queer women, but it's not for everyone. The idea with scissoring is that two people with vulvas intertwine their legs, like two pairs of open scissors coming together until their vulvas are touching. Then a lot of grinding and rubbing. Then a lot of grinding and rubbing ensues. A lot of people talk about it like it's the thing lesbians always do to have sex. But for some, the position is uncomfortable or awkward. They might prefer the same general action, but against each other's thighs or each other's body parts instead. Clitoris-focused sex. A lot of people with vaginas find it hard to orgasm without some form of clitoral stimulation, and for some couples, this is the basis of their sex lives, with no penetration at all. It might be with a partner's fingers, other parts of their body, or a sex toy. Muffing, a digital penetration technique that involves stimulation of the inguinal canals. You might enjoy one or a mix of these things, or maybe even different with different partners over your life. There are no rules. Alongside or instead of sex, there might be other types of touch that are important to intimacy: kissing, cuddling, licking, comfort, affection, and more lingering sensual touch. You might want to use toys on yourself or your partner to add some fun and variety into your sex life, although definitely aren't a requirement. Toys you might want to explore might include a dildo, a sex toy designed for penetration, a strap-on, a dildo that can be attached to a person using a harness to use for vaginal, anal, or oral sex.
1 minute.
A butt plug, a sex toy designed specifically for anal penetration. A vibrator, a sex toy that vibrates and is used on or in the body to enhance sexual pleasure and stimulation. The types of sex we've talked about so far are all very hands-on, but what about if you're long distance or you want to fool around while you're not in the same place? Talking on the phone, messaging online, and sending photos are all options for many queer people, particularly if they don't have a safe place at home to bring their partners. However, if you're under 18, it's important to learn about the laws where you live. In a lot of places, sending an explicit photo to a partner, even one that you've taken yourself may be considered child pornography. So what happens next when you're ready to have sex for the first time? This is inappropriate, and I'm mortified to sit here and read this to you guys publicly, and this is at the hands of our children, and I would ask that you move it to its own place in the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to also point out that this is in the sex ed section, in the young adult section, and it does exist in our library as well as libraries throughout the regional consortium of libraries that we're a part of.
It shouldn't.
Tanya Murray, and after that it'd be Martha Richardson. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tanya. I am a mom of many and a grandma here in Lebanon. And I just wanted to pass out first, if that's okay, some reading material to take. This is a current book that we have in our children's side of the library. This is the title. Let's talk about it. So I'm just going to read to you what's in here. Again, I just wanted to let you know, so this book is about this high in the library, right about your calf. I have 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-old kids that have very easily access to this. So as I read this, just keep that in mind. Gender is defined by the society and the culture that you live in. Its expectations and assumptions our community has for how we are supposed to behave according to our perceived sex. But gender is so much bigger than male and female, and thankfully our vocabulary on gender has begun to reflect that. So they're stating it as a fact that gender is no longer biological, but it is now just however. So this is, I guess I just want to say, I am not pro banning of any books. Absolutely not. Every family should have access to what they choose. I am, however, very concerned that these books are so accessible to our children. As you can see on a couple of the photos, this is just right here in front, showing the biological male/female or whatever you want, all the body parts, all the genitalia showing here. Another one, I'm just going to read this one. Let's see. I can't show you guys all the pictures, but here we have 2 people, 2 males showing anal sex here in our book. Talking about, I can't handle it anymore. Our bodies are so incredible. It makes me want to go have some alone time with my bits. We now get to another page. This is the genitalia of a female vagina, and it's now going to walk me step by step how to masturbate. So let me just read a couple. Trail your fingers around and over your vulva. Flutter your fingers lightly from place to place. Tug, pull, and rub your labia. Circle your fingers around and over your clit. Give it a couple quick pats. Press and pull on the skin around your vulva to make it taut. Try slipping a finger or 2 into your vagina. Later on, add a sex toy for your enjoyment of masturbation. Here we have a picture of 2 boys camping together, and they're coming out of a tent, as you can see. It's a novel, it's supposed to be a comic, and it says, "Zip, fresh air. I had not realized how hot it got in there. Oh, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to come. Me neither." And then we have a page here, how to send sexting to one another. How to send images one to another. Here we go. Oh, you sexy thing. But just like every sex activity, there are a bunch of ground rules. And first they say you must give your consent. However, if we go to our law, minors can't give consent. Why are we providing our children books telling them you have to give consent when legally that's not possible? So then on the next page, it even says, oh, it's really important to be aware of the laws you live in. If you're under 18, do not participate. Then why is this book in the minors section of our library? And one of the last things I just was going to show you here on the last page, it talks about pornography. It shows two people practicing pornography on one another. And it talks about how, I'll just read it to you. Watching porn uncritically can leave you with unrealistic expectations about what to do in the bedroom. So do yourself a favor and consume it with a hefty pinch of salt. At the same time, remember that the people you see on camera are real human beings who deserve your respect. So we have cautions, and that's what we call parenting.
Thank you. Martha Richardson. After that, it'll be Jackie Stutzman. Martha, what ward are you in?
I don't know. I'm in the county, but I've been a Lebanon resident for 35 years.
Oh,
Hi, Michelle. First of all, thank you for all the work that you do for our city. I really appreciate you guys putting in your time and effort and allowing me to speak today. I don't have a book to read. My purpose for being
Can
here.
you move your mic a little closer?
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. My purpose for speaking today is to request that the books that contain sexually explicit and/or mature content that are intended to be read by people over the age of 14 be labeled appropriately and moved to a different section of the library. This will better serve our community as a whole by helping prevent younger children from early exposure to content they're not yet mature enough or old enough to consume. As you all probably know, the library has a very open from young children all the way over to the young adult section. That makes it great for families like me where I have different age levels. I can help my youngest pick books over at the young section while my girls kind of peruse the older section. However, that makes it easily access for the young adults for younger level children. So books like that have been mentioned, I would really like to see be moved, possibly over by the fireside area on the adult side section, and perhaps notifying the library's patrons that these books are now available at the Lebanon Library would be nice too. It'd be great to inform parents what information is out there so that they can decide whether they would like their family to participate in the consumption of the material or to opt out. Thank you.
thank you. Jackie Stutzman. Thank you. And after that would be Vanessa Wood.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hearing me. My name is Jackie Stutzman. I am a nurse that works for Samaritan. I have worked as an ICU nurse for 14 years, treating pediatric, adolescent, adult, and geriatric patients. I'm just going to be objective because that's what we do as medical professionals, and I'm just going to show you what's inside the books. And here we go. This book's title is It's Perfectly Normal. There's a lot of, it's actually for ages 10 and up. It's in the junior section of our library. There's large amounts of nudity as well as adolescent nudity. There's many sexual suggestive photos, pornographic material. These things are not developmentally appropriate for a 10-year-old child to go pull off the shelf. I am not for a book ban. I believe books should be available to parents and children, but parents should have the choice whether a child sees this. Let's begin. This book is also a resource provided by the Lebanon Community Hospital Social Accountability Grant. I did reach out to them and they did not know that this particular book was purchased. Here's the nudity ranges from very young to very old. Just a girl checking out her body. More nudity. This particular spot here actually teaches masturbation with pictures. I'm just going to read this section. After a bit, the female's vagina becomes moist and slippery, her clitoris becomes hard, and the male's penis becomes erect, stiff, and larger. Sometimes a bit of clear fluid that may contain a few sperm comes out of the tip of the penis and makes it wet, and the two people begin to feel excited about each other. This is a photo of two people having sex. This is a photo of a young adult, very clear over the age of 10, putting on a condom. This section instructs the student about access of online pornography. This is available for 10-year-old children to walk up and grab. It is my request that this book be available to parents as a resource for their children if they see that it is fit. Not for kids, not available to go grab off the shelf and open it for a child. I'm asking that it just be moved or correctly labeled as a teaching piece. This next book is called Trans Teens Survival Guide. This one states ideologies as facts. I will show you the pictures of injections of hormones as well. There are lots of different comics in the book demeaning and stating ideology as facts. Just going to read a section of the book. So while some people who haven't had surgery might refer to their genitalias as clit, pussy, and vagina, others might prefer terms associated with masculinity, such as dick, cock, dicklet, fuckhole, manhole, or hole. Some might not want them to be mentioned at all and avoid the topic. Some might feel comfortable talking about having sex or being fucked or fucking others or how they have sex, whereas others don't.
1 minute.
This is where it talks about the effects of testosterone and estrogen. And I would like to point out that the authors, Owl and Fox, they call themselves writers, filmmakers, and trans campaigners. I would like to read this last part. Actually, I'll show you this. It shows pictures of how to give yourselves injections of hormones. Neither of these two authors are from medical backgrounds, and they're speaking to medical advice. In many countries, access to hormones can be limited or even impossible, or it can sometimes take up a few years to get a hold of them. It is a well-known fact that you can get almost anything off of the internet, and hormones are no different. Trans people sometimes resort to obtaining hormones online out of desperation. It's often a matter of life and death for people to start a medical transition. This is not safe. It's not medically safe to do this.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
I have a question. That last book, what section is that from?
This is located in the young adult section of the library.
It's in the sex ed section in the young adult, the same ones as the others, except for the first one.
Okay.
The one that we first read was in the children's section.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vanessa Wood. Vanessa Wood. And after that, it'll be Joshua On.
Hi.
Vanessa, what ward do you reside in?
I'm outside city limits, but
Okay.
we've been Lebanon Public Library members for the last 8 years.
Okay, thank you.
I have 3 books here that go over similar topics. However, I'm going to focus on the one that my 4-year-old grabbed. This is a picture book mostly. There's not a whole lot of words in here, which is one of my main concerns, the content. Considering the suggestive topic, it leaves much to be interpreted by the viewer. So it starts out with this little boy, Julian. He's on the subway with his grandmother, and he sees 3 women dressed as mermaids. He becomes fascinated with these women and begins to transition into a mermaid. Seems easy enough. However, he doesn't just stop there. He begins to transition into a girl. My concern is that this book reinforces gender stereotypes and the ideology of if you like something deemed feminine or masculine, you therefore are that gender. The book finishes off by this little boy and his grandmother going to a parade. From my research, they want you to believe that this is a transgender parade. Some believe that not giving children access to books like this is being discriminatory. However, this bag of books, I went to the library, our Lebanon Public Library, in search of these books. Not one of them were there. Not one. These books are life stories of influential historical African Americans. These books promote character development and hard work despite challenges, and they have expansive vocabulary and culture. This book lacks vocabulary and affirms gender confusion. Grant funding is going to these books. Which one would you want in the hand of your next generation?
Thank you. Just a reminder, remember, everybody be respectful. If someone's giving their comments, please don't interrupt them. Everybody has been pretty good so far, so please remember that. Joshua on, and after that it'll be Scott Cowgill. Joshua, what ward are you from?
Ward 2.
2, thank you.
Just to clarify, I have a property in Ward 2 that we used to live for several years, but we still live in the Lebanon zip code area. Again, my name is Joshua On. Thank you for having me here. I am Hannah On's husband. It's clear why we are here. We have real concerns over the content our children have access to in the public library. Just to reiterate, I am also against banning of books. However, if you do a quick Google search of banned books that our federal government has banned, it's pretty ironic that that's being done, and we are actually opposing that. Our intent is to have certain books removed from the library. How the library wishes to do that is up to them, but the end goal is to protect our young children and adults from language and illustrations that depict inappropriate sexual acts and an ideology that promotes body mutilation and sterilization. We want to protect our children from content that guises itself as health information. We also want to protect them from making life-changing, permanent choices that should be left to adulthood. The demographic these authors and illustrators are targeting can't buy alcohol, can't get a tattoo, most can't drive or vote, but many of these books are promoting our kids to go under the knife and take medication that will physically and chemically alter them for the rest of their lives. And all for what? To fix trauma, to fix depression and anxiety. It's putting a mask on the deeper problems that were traditionally treated by counselors, psychiatrists, faith leaders, other professionals in their fields, and parents who could get to the root of the problem. Now we are seeing books instructing kids not to tell their parents about transitioning and encouraging them to explore pornography and sexual fantasies. I do not wish to create a distance between community members. We all have to do life together, and I'm not ignorant to the fact that children and young adults in our community face some serious and complex issues. I'm just calling it as it is. It's harmful, and these books need to have their own space. I'm going to read a few excerpts out of a book called A Quick and Easy Guide to They, Them Pronouns by Archie Bongiovanni and Tristan Jimerson. This book exists to educate and inform people on gender neutral pronouns, specifically they, them, so that you don't have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. We want to keep this book short and affordable so you can give it to your friends, family, coworkers, or random people on the street. Also, if education fails and folks are being jerks, you can just throw this book in their face. It's the future. We don't have time for that nonsense. It's portrayed as a comic book. And yes, it sounds playful, but subconsciously, it already sends a message. You could use violence if someone disagrees with your ideology. Next. However, when you outright refuse to a person's correct pronouns, it's rude, selfish, and lazy. And even if you're okay with being all three of those, remember that it can also get you fired. It doesn't become a choice anymore. You are told to obey. Instead of having a civil conversation, there's a threat of violence. And there's a threat of termination from your own job. And the last few years, we've experienced something similar to that, where many people have lost their jobs. And it's concerning to me and is worrisome that nowhere in this book shows examples of being resilient in your community or amongst other people who have differing ideas than you do. It's a disservice to our younger generations, and it creates a selfish culture. I have 4 young children
30 seconds.
myself, thank you. And I do not agree with any of this. However, I do believe in the First Amendment, and you can do whatever you want. But this is harmful, and I just urge City Council to just consider creating its own space. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Calgill. And after that, it's Anthony, and I'm sorry, I cannot read your last name. It starts with an M. What ward do you reside in?
We live outside the city limits. We've been members of the library for years. Okay, my name is Scott Cogill. I'm an attorney, so I'm here to talk to you about the First Amendment. The most relevant Supreme Court case for dealing with public libraries and the First Amendment is United States versus American Library Association from 2003.
Can you pull the microphone a little closer? Thanks.
In that case, came out of after Congress passed the Children's Internet Protection Act of 2000, which required libraries and schools to use internet filters to block obscene material, child pornography, and content that was defined as harmful to minors. It allowed these internet filters to be removed by staff upon request for lawful research. The American Library Association, the Multnomah County Library, and others sued to invalidate this law as a violation of the First Amendment. The plaintiffs initially prevailed at the district court where it ruled that this was an unconstitutional restriction on the First Amendment right to receive information. On appeal, the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the ruling of the district court and found that when the government is acting through its spending power, it has wide latitude to attach conditions to its spending. It's necessary. They also found it was necessary and acceptable for libraries to consider the content of material in making decisions about the collection that they enjoy broad discretion. Part of the district court's ruling was that requiring a patron to ask to have an internet filter removed was problematic because they might find it embarrassing. The Supreme Court specifically rejected this, finding that the Constitution does not guarantee the right to acquire information at a public library without any risk of embarrassment. Now, as you've heard tonight, no one's here to ban books. We simply are asking that they be moved to a different area of the library. But if you were interested, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in 2009 ruled in a case called ACLU of Florida versus Miami-Dade County School Board that the removal of books from a library is not a ban because anyone can still possess or purchase the book. We aren't here to ban ideas that we don't like. In fact, I think even bad ideas should be in the public library. We should have books by Karl Marx. We should also have books opposing communism and why it's bad. That's how we know it's bad, and we pass that on to the next generation. I next want to look at the librarian's discretion. These parents have, at various times have approached the library staff to ask these books being moved, and they've been rejected. So I want to review your powers. ORS Chapter 357 provides for the establishment of public libraries, and in the city code, you've established the city council also sits as the library board. Among your powers in ORS 357.490 is your supervising powers over the library. So you, of course, have the power to hire and fire the library staff and adopt policies directing them on how the library should be run. Among the powers is either your power to approve or delegating to the librarian the responsibility for approving all expenditures from the library fund. So far, we've delegated that power to the librarian. I think we should review how that's being used. So I took a while to search through the catalog, and I noticed, I said, let's find someone controversial, Donald Trump. Do we have The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump? We don't. We do have 5 books by Elizabeth Warren, 4 books by Barack Obama, 2 books by Michelle Obama, 5 books by Bill Clinton, 9 if you count all the different formats, 3 books by Hillary Clinton, 6 if you count the different formats, 3 books by Chelsea Clinton. We have Capital by Karl Marx, but we have no books by Thomas Sowell, F.A. Hayek, Ludwig von Mises, or Milton Friedman. If you do a keyword search for the word transgender, it produces 59 results. But we don't have one copy of the 2020 bestselling book, Irreversible Damage by Abigail Schreier, critically analyzing the recent surge in diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Now, library trade groups act as if it's an undying principle of liberty that the librarian should have full control of the budget, make all the decisions about what goes in the library, and that any questioning of that is somehow undermining democracy itself. So I wanted to report to you today that you do have the authority under Oregon law to adopt policies for the library, and you can do that consistent with everyone's right to still receive the information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I have one last card. It's Anthony, but it's Mobley. Thank you. What ward? Oh, Ward 1. Thank you.
And thank you for letting me speak. Hello, my name is Anthony Mobley, and I'm a Ward 1 resident. As a father and a grandfather, as well as a longtime Oregonian, I come before you to represent the opinion of somebody interested in protecting the benefit of one of the many freedoms we all enjoy. That's the public library. My opinion is that this body is not equipped and should not be used to determine what is and is not available in our public library. We have a robust and dynamic system in place to work through these decisions, including the policies regarding who gets a library card. Minors must have an adult present to sign in order to receive a card. 15 to 17-year-olds may sign for themselves if they are also in possession of a driver's license. From some of the testimonies heard here today, it sounds as though some of the concerns presented may be more of a parental supervision problem, not so much a public policy issue. When I heard of the mere mention of outside influences implying censorship of the contents of our beautiful library, I knew that I had to come before the community to be counted as a voice in favor of our library and the professionals we have entrusted to oversee it. In my opinion, there's no room for undue censorship in our community. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank everybody for being respectful. We only had one little outburst, but that's fine. This was not on the agenda. This is just public comments. I encourage the public to always come in so we can listen to you, hear your concerns, but there is a process in place to address these issues. What I'm hearing is it's not about people wanting to throw books out of the library. I'll say it this way. If we wanted to do that, all I need to do is put it on the agenda. But I didn't, because I don't think any of us want to do that. Okay, so there is a process in place to address these grievances to the library committee. So I'm going to have the city manager give a brief synopsis of that. Like I said, I love hearing everybody speak. I love the involvement, but Nancy?
Sure. So we do have a city council mayor appointment, city council consent for appointments to the library board, which has a role in reviewing requests to remove books from the library. There is a policy available in the library policy handbook on the library's website for how to go about that and what you need to do. I will say that our library has a relatively small acquisition budget for any of their materials, and they are very careful about what they select. They do extensive evaluation of reviewed material, making sure that they are getting well-reviewed items that they think are pertinent and are useful. They get requests to acquire items. That may be for books that are not well reviewed or not available, they can't pursue. They will do interlibrary loans for those items if somebody wants to secure something that is not in our collection or the consortium collection. They consider very carefully what they get and where they place it. There are items that are identified as being for one age group that they may recognize are potentially controversial, and they may move those into an adult section. They may move a children's book into a young adult section so that it is still available for those who wish to check it out. But it may not be readily available in the, I guess, the standard identifiable age group section of the library. A lot of that involves a lot of professional judgment and frankly, reading every book that comes into the library to make that determination. I think the library staff do a good job walking a fine line of trying to provide information to everyone in the community. I think we've heard some tonight about parents having a role in what their children check out and see and find. I think the library, we heard from one person, the library encourages families to come to the library, parents to come with their children to participate in story time, to participate in material selection, and to play a role in that decision process, particularly for younger children. I recognize older teenagers can come to the library on their own and pick out their own materials. I think that is a different audience. So if there is a desire to question a book, I would recommend people check out the library policy for questioning materials and submit that to the library board for their consideration, and that will follow that process. And I will note that policy was adopted by the council. I want to say it was updated in January or February this year. The material might have been in the fall.
It was in the
but I-
fall, because we have new members since we did that.
Okay, so that policy is reviewed by the library board, and they did a lot of extensive review, a lot of looking at other communities' policies in that rework, and then came to this body with that update, so.
Nancy, is it the librarian or the library advisory committee that determines where the books are placed in the?
That's the library director and the staff there.
So would the advisory committee have any input on being able to move books from one section to another?
I think they would probably take that up in discussion.
Yeah, because I know I took my kids to the library a lot when they were younger, and having 3 kids, you'd be with one of them, the other 2 are elsewhere in the children's area. Some of the stuff that was brought here tonight, I would absolutely not want my 10-year-old to just be able to pull out and open up and read that. So I can understand a lot of what these community members are concerned about is just the access. I didn't see anyone coming here asking for, books to be banned or even censored. It's placement in the library and the accessibility to little kids to access that kind of stuff that worries me.
And many of the books that were cited tonight are in the young adult sex education section of the library. So I think
All but one.
most of them are not available to younger children. So I do think that the library takes that role very seriously in terms of trying to make sure that they are at an age-appropriate audience with where they place materials.
What kind of policing is in the library to keep a 8-year-old from wandering over there? Is it? I understand the parent has responsibility, but if you're policing 3 children at one time, kids are gonna go and
It
grab
really,
books.
and frankly, as a librarian, you can't, as a librarian, say, you don't belong here. I mean, to some extent, they can try and encourage kids, but you can't
Can't deny them.
You can't deny them. You can't push them out of the way. You can't grab a book out of somebody's hand and say, oh, you shouldn't be reading that.
Well, and they're not limited to only checking out books in the young adult and the children's section. They can check out a cookbook in the adult section too. They
Sure.
can check out, all of the Danielle Steele books in the adult section too with that library card.
Kids of an age will range from, my daughter had trouble reading. She read a lot of graphic novels all the way through high school. My husband at that age, at 10, would have been checking out, biographies of President Truman, because, thick books, because he was an avid reader at 10 years old. everybody is going to be different in how they use that library. And I do think that when you're talking about children, you are talking about a need for a parent to have some level of interaction there.
I'm also aware that there are parents that use the library as a babysitter. They drop them off and then go do whatever they're going to do. So there is no supervision for these kids at all. They have access to anything.
But the library can't be the babysitters and they can't enforce things.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
That is a problem.
that's a different subject to talk about.
Yeah. Well, access, I think, is the key.
I guess back to my original question for Nancy was, if there's, is it only the librarian who gets to determine where the books are located?
I think if there was an appeal of a location of a book, that would go to the library board for discussion.
Okay.
Any other comments from the council?
Oh, I just want to add, I checked with Kendra on Monday, anticipating a group today, and she said she had not received any formal challenges to any books as of, with these books that have been brought up tonight, as of Monday. Could have changed on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay. Any other comments? We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
10-minute.
10-minute recess. Come to order. We're reconvening.
I'd like to make a motion that we move agenda item 10 up to the head of the line. That way we can take care of the judge's evaluation.
Is there
Or
any-
not
any-
evaluation, but agreement.
Is there any seconds on the motion?
Second.
We have a motion to move item number 10 to the top of the line. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. So we'll move on to number 10, which is renewal of municipal court judge Gerald White employment agreement.
Said you're going to do that, but I forgot that I was the one that was presenting it, so you got to give me a second here.
Oops.
Got to get to the right screen.
My apologies.
No, it's my fault. I realized you were doing that, but then I realized I'm not on the right screen. All right. There we go. Page, and now I got to get down through the bottom of it. All right, well, I can start talking while I'm looking for it. Basically, it was a really easy negotiation with an excellent judge who negotiated extremely hard on his behalf by starting everything out by saying, "I just want the same thing I've been getting." So, I negotiated really hard on the city's behalf to make sure that we kept it without a raise and that he was getting, pretty much exactly the same thing as he was getting. So, I appreciate all the kudos that I'm going to get for that. What we did have to do, though, was change around from the judge being an independent contractor to an employee because of the misguided opinions of the IRS in insinuating that municipal judges are or may be employees as opposed to independent contractors, even though, in my opinion, that violates both the common law and the Oregon statutory definitions of independent contractors and the independent nature of a municipal judge and municipal attorneys. That being said, the cautious approach was most definitely to change him. The potential penalties would be extreme. And the consequences would be extreme if the IRS did want to recategorize. So we have moved him over to an employee under, what is it called technically, an employee that is part-time or under the benefits requirements, technically. So Brandon did a good job of working with the judge. It was a fairly complicated part was figuring out how to make it the same while still paying him as an employee. In other words, he nets out the same. We tried to net him out exactly the same, but we had to do that by backing into it with payroll taxes, and Brandon could probably explain more of that if anybody has any questions about it, but I believe they got there, and I believe the judge agreed and Brandon agreed. And so my part was relatively easy in that taking the obvious positive reviews that the judge has received and negotiating firmly on behalf of the city of Lebanon. We have presented to you a new 2-year contract for municipal Judge Waite. And I did all that without finding it, so I got to get to it now.
Any motions on renewal?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion to approve. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes and the renewal is complete. So thank you.
Want to see if he wants to say anything?
Do you want to say anything, Judge? Thank you.
Showed up to make sure that I would be available if anybody had any questions or comments or what have you, but I appreciate the continued faith in doing a good job over there. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My only other question would be, when will the contract be available for my signing? Okay, sounds good. And thank you for accommodating me for moving the agenda item up.
Well, I couldn't forgive myself if I had you stand there for another 3 hours like the last meeting or the last council meeting. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very
you are welcome.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the public hearings, the state revenue sharing. The public hearing regarding state revenue sharing is now open at 8:15 p.m. Finance Director.
I'll apologize in advance because I certainly have many agenda items this week, so you have to hear me talk about these items. The first one before you, so all of these are related to our budget adoption process. There are multiple steps outlined in Oregon Revised Statutes, or ORS. The first one on the agenda is the state revenue sharing. The state revenue sharing is an ORS requirement that we hold a public hearing in order to allow public discussion on the use of state revenue sharing funds. The revenue sharing funds include state cigarette revenue, liquor tax revenue, marijuana tax, the state share specifically, and then kind of a general just state revenue sharing line. All that money comes from the state of Oregon. In total, the revenue budgeted for the 2024 fiscal year is $728,102. And this is a non-dedicated revenue in the general fund, which means that we are then using it for various expenditures across the general fund.
Does the council have any questions of staff? Is there any public comment? Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? Then that means the public hearing is hereby closed at 8:17. Council, you're free to discuss this.
Want me to read the title?
Yeah, go ahead.
Resolution number 2023-09, a resolution certifying its eligibility and declaring the city of Lebanon's election to receive state revenues.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Savage and seconded by
Steinhebel.
Council President.
Council President.
Oh, yes.
See, he helped me out on this one.
We even practiced before the meeting.
I know. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item, adoption of the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 City of Lebanon approved budget. Public hearing regarding this, regarding the City of Lebanon's budget is now open at 8:18. Will the Finance Director present his staff report?
ORS 294 outlines the budget development process for municipalities, special districts, and other quasi-state or local organizations in the state of Oregon. The City Council and the Budget Committee met on May 17th to discuss the proposed budget. The proposed budget was then approved by the Budget Committee and forwarded to the City Council with a recommendation to adopt. In that meeting, they received the budget officer's proposed budget and budget message. A public hearing was held and noticed as required. The various departments presented their budgets, and after an opportunity to hear from the public, the committee approved an overall budget of $85,312,588 and recommended taxes of 5.1364 per 1,000 of assessed value, along with bond revenue of $1,666,124. Before you is a resolution specifically asking to adopt a total expenditure budget of $68,791,302. What is different about that number is the reserve for future expenditures that was part of the proposed budget. Those are not included in the adoption resolution before you, as they are supposed to be essentially unappropriated, therefore aren't considered expenditures overall. So that is in the resolution for you, along with the consideration of the taxes.
Does the council have any questions of staff? Public comments? Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? Public hearing is hereby closed at 8:20 p.m. Council discussion? What's that?
Read the title. The title of the resolution, would you like?
Oh, the resolution 2023-06.
Resolution number 2023-06, a resolution levying taxes for the City of Lebanon's budget for fiscal year 2023-24.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion moved for approval, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is passed. Resolution resolution number 2023-04.
Mhm.
I read this?
Yeah. Computers
There we
are
go.
our friends.
Resolution number 2023-04, resolution adopting the City of Lebanon's budget and making appropriations for fiscal year 2023-24.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has passed. Move on to the public hearing regarding urban renewal district budget is now open at 8:21 PM. Finance Director, present your staff report.
The Urban Renewal Agency, as a separate entity of the City of Lebanon, also has to follow the same procedures under ORS 294. So with that said, the Budget Committee received the Budget Officer or Agency Manager's proposed budget and budget message during a public hearing on May 17th, 2023. The meeting was noticed in the Albany Democrat Herald to comply with ORS 294-426, Section 3, subsection A. After an opportunity to hear from the public, the committee approved a budget of $4,720,888 recommended taxes and recommended the board adopt the budget. This included operating and non-operating costs. Before the board is a resolution to adopt a total expenditure budget of $4,720,888 and a resolution to levy taxes for the coming fiscal year.
I need to step back and reconvene as the Urban Renewal Agency.
So recess as the Lebanon City Council. and
Yeah,
convene as
recess
the-
as Lebanon City Council and reconvene as the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency. So, does he have to read that again?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
He doesn't want to hear it again.
Okay, does council have any questions of staff? Thank you. Any public comments? Anybody else would like to speak on this matter? This public hearing is hereby closed at 8:23. Council discussion. Resolution 2023-07.
Resolution levying taxes for the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency's budget for fiscal year 2023-24.
Move for approval.
Second it.
Motion to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion has passed. Resolution 2023-05.
A resolution adopting the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency's budget and making appropriations for fiscal year 2023-24.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approved has been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion has passed. We will recess the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency and reconvene as City Council. Item number 4, public hearing regarding fiscal year 2022-23 transfer in budget appropriations and supplemental budget is now open at 8:24. Finance Director, present your staff report.
I want to point out one item, and that is that unfortunately we had to have one small revision to this resolution. So going around the table right now is a revised memo as well as a revised resolution. What was added at that time was due to, it was an adjustment for a retiring employee in our city recorder's office. Specifically adjusting that budget by $8,500 to cover the costs of the final payroll and any associated payouts from vacation and accrual balances. So overall, there are 5 adjustments outlined in Resolution 2023-08, an adjustment to the finance budget and the general fund, an adjustment for debt service interest that was not properly budgeted in the first place, the adjustment in the city recorder's office now, and 2 requests for increases in expenditure authority due to unknown factors that arose after budget development was completed in 2022. Staff is seeking to add $6,000 to the municipal court budget in the general fund to cover additional fringe benefits. So that's either health benefits or tax costs to the city for Social Security and Medicare, and other employee benefits paid for in part or wholly by the employer. To date, $120,388 has been spent, and we anticipate another $10,000 to $12,000 will be charged to the division prior to June 30th. So we're seeking an adjustment just to make sure that the bottom line ends out in the black at the end of the year. We are seeking another $10,000 in the debt service interest line of the general fund. The original budget was set at $25,607. However, debt schedules for the loan in the general fund indicate that that cost will be $35,606. We believe this was a typographical error. So we are asking for the $10,000 to cover those necessary costs. We've discussed the city recorder's office adjustment. All three of these adjustments would come from contingency funds budgeted in either the general fund or the administrative internal services fund, and therefore does not add any expenditure authority to those overall funds for the fiscal year. Two budget requests that do add expenditure authority, one in the Links Transit Fund. Specifically, they were scheduled to purchase a new bus. That timetable is originally scheduled for delivery during the 2024 fiscal year due to inventory shortages and supply chain issues. However, we were recently notified that that timetable has been moved up. The bus is now in Canby, I think. Anyways, ready for us. Oh, it's here now. Is now here in the city of Lebanon, which really means we need to purchase it in this given fiscal year. So we are asking, the bus is expected to cost $163,706. That includes the outfitting required for it to add any necessary communications equipment, cameras, identification and labeling on the bus. What we are asking for specifically is $148,975 in additional expenditure authority to cover the purchase of that bus. All of that will be offset by revenue coming in from various state and federal resources that the Links program has already secured from those partners. Over in the engineering department, we need an adjustment of about $30,000 to cover necessary plan reviews. Over the course of a fiscal year, we plan for what we anticipate building and plan reviews may look like for a year. I guess some good news here in this case is that we undershot that, which means our building and plan reviews were higher than we anticipated. Good news certainly for the long term for the community, but in terms of our budget in this current fiscal year, we need a little bit more to make it through without violating ORS. So with that said, we're requesting an extra $30,000 that would be covered by revenue budgeted as public improvement application fees, which we anticipate will see an additional $100,000 in revenue beyond what was originally adopted. The last two items require a public hearing because they are expenditure adds. The public hearing notice was sent out, published in the Albany Democrat Herald as required by ORS 294, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Does the council have any questions?
Is the Lynx vehicle the only change in here that doesn't actually come out of the general fund?
It does not come out of the general fund. So
It's because it's a federal grant, but the other items do. Is that correct?
the adjustment to municipal court, debt service interest, both of those are in the general fund, and we have contingency budgeted that we're just seeking to swap with.
Yeah.
And then the city recorder's office is budgeted in the administrative internal service fund. The engineering adjustment is in a development revenue or development review fund.
Okay.
The municipal court budget addition, is that in any way attributed to a miscalculation by ADP, or is that just a miscalculation on our end?
It's a miscalculation on our end. Benefits can change during a year if somebody changes their medical, dental, vision benefits to maybe incorporate family or not. It could be a change in taxes. Certainly this year in January, the city had to start paying for the paid family leave, or paid leave Oregon, I think it's called, tax that was added. So that there are specific changes during a year that can contribute to that. This was
Okay.
not due to any payroll errors.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Any public comments? Anybody else who wants to speak regarding this matter? Public hearing is hereby closed at 8:31 PM. Any council discussion? If not,
Resolution number 2023-8, a resolution authorizing a transfer in budget appropriations in the supplemental budget for the City of Lebanon 2023-22-23 budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion has been approved. Okay. Now we'll be back in the regular session. Number 5, agenda item, certifying the city complies with sections of the ORS 475C related to marijuana sales inside city limits. Finance Director will be presenting.
This is the last scheduled item on the agenda for which you have to listen to me talk. So as part of our budget adoption process, we as a city have to certify that we comply with ORS 475C in order to receive state marijuana funds from the state of Oregon. This item does not specifically require a public hearing, which is why it is back into the regular agenda piece. But similar to our state revenue sharing, where we had to certify that we provide specific services, this just wants us to certify that we do allow for sales and distribution within city limits, and also certifies our individual tax within City of Lebanon limits, which is 3%.
All right. Will the city attorney please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 2023-13, a resolution certifying the city complies with Am I on the right one? It's not the right one.
13.
Oh, that is the right one. Resolution certifying the city complies with sections of ORS 475C related to marijuana sales inside city limits.
Motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion has passed. Approval of Resolution 2023-13.
Still say we need the gas station.
Move on to the next item is the AFSCME collective bargaining contract, July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2022. Human Resource Director presenting.
Actually, I will do that.
Okay.
I'll let Angela go home.
Okay.
This was discussed earlier this evening in executive session, the highlights. This was a successful negotiation process with AFSCME, a relatively short set of meetings, and I think got a lot of corrections made in a longstanding kind of error-filled agenda agreement. I will note for the record that this does include a cost of living adjustment of 4% effective July 1st. And then there is a range of COLAs in future years for this contract, and it will be back up in 2026. I'd answer any questions you might have.
What's the range of COLAs?
Oh, you should have known you were going to ask me that. I want to say it's 2 to 4.
It is.
Yeah, 2 to 4%.
Based on CPIW.
Okay.
It was in the pamphlet.
Any other questions?
Let's go with that one question.
There you go.
No other questions. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been motion to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion has passed. Move on to number 7, authorization for demolition of historic landmark water treatment plant on 1155 South 2nd Street. Kelly Hart will be,
She is there.
She is online.
there she is, will be presenting.
Good evening, everybody. This is a fairly simple process, but I do understand that it could be a pulling on the heartstrings process, but I'll work through it. The proposal before you tonight is the demolition of what's called a designated landmark within our city. This is for the old water treatment plant building, which is the brick building on Second Street. The address is 1155 South Second Street. The property is identified in our local historic registry as a designated landmark, which means when we wish to demolish the landmark or significantly alter it, it goes before the City of Lebanon Landmark Commission, which is also the board of the Planning Commission, with for a further recommendation to the City Council. Before you in the agenda packet is a staff report that provides the reasoning behind the proposed demolition and the support of the required findings in our development code for the demolition itself. Generally speaking, it is a very adorable brick building that has an adorable historic character. I can see your face, Michelle. But it is one that if we remove the massive piping that goes through the building into the holding tanks, pretty much upon evaluation of that structure, the piping is the thing that is mostly holding it up. So once we move forward with the removal of that, the structure will not be structurally sound. And so we need to go through the process of removing it from the historic landmark registry and approval of the demolition. The engineering department has been the lead on this process to go through the state's requirements for removal of a historic landmark, and they have done so through the state's Office of Historic Preservation. And this is the city's counter to that of removing it from our records as well. So before you tonight is that proposal, and there's a resolution included that would authorize that demolition. So at that point, if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, I would recommend the adoption of the resolution.
This is going to be a bid process. Contractor's going to bid for it.
Yes, it's a
Have you-
fairly large demolition process through the engineering department.
You have any idea how much it's going to cost?
I
So I can tell you that the budget for it right now is 1.2 million, but we are not finding anybody around who has done a similar demolition project that would give us any idea about what actual costs are. So I believe the bid is out right now. When the bids come back in, we will know much better what it's going to cost. Right now, that's best estimate is 1.2 million.
Any environmental issues?
So it's had the environmental work done, it's had the historic work done, it's had,
it's jumped through all the hoops at the state level.
it has, and it is, the environmental piece has been cleaned up that was there.
So
That's
we're
been
not gonna
taken care of.
uncover 3 Mile Island here.
No,
Okay.
no.
And I will say, as part of this process, the city has taken historical photos of the sites. We have received a request to preserve some of the brick from the building for historical purposes, which will be done. And there is already a historical placard there. The main purpose of the historical designation is actually associated with the Albany Canal. That's obviously staying in place. So that placard will be there. It'll be removed as part of the demolition, but reinstated after the demolition is completed to make sure that it maintains its structural value. And so all of the main historical value of the area is still being preserved through the canal. The building itself is just being removed.
Any other questions? Will the city attorney please read the resolution 2023-11?
A resolution authorizing the demolition of a designated landmark, old water treatment plant, 1155 South Second Street.
Motion to approve or deny?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been a motion to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion has been approved. Moved on to number 8, approval of Lebanon Downtown Association Agreement. Nancy Brewer, City Manager, will be presenting.
Thank you. As discussed a little bit earlier this evening when the Downtown Association made their presentation, there is an agreement in here for fiscal year 23-24 for $30,000. That matches what was given to LDA in the current fiscal year. Based on prior council direction, the agreement has some steps that LDA has to go through. We have moved from making a single $30,000 payment to quarterly payments that would be tied to LDA's continued performance. I think from what I heard earlier this evening, there may be a desire to amend that. And so I would request that those amendments either be made as a motion that gets voted on, or at least to get consensus from the council agreeing with those amendments. And then the motion at the end would probably be to move to approve the amended agreement that would include any amendments offered and approved. Then I'll answer any questions you have.
Well, I would first add to the agreement that they have to be in good standing with the Oregon Department of Justice, meaning they've filed their CT-12s. Problem they're going to run into is I think they can only go back 3 years, and they've got 5 years missing. The other thing we need is the approved fiscal sponsorship letter from United Way. And when I say approved, approved by IRS to act as that agent, which is going to take some time for them to process. Just because they've got it doesn't mean it's in force. And then they can act as a nonprofit agent for them.
By requiring they be in good standing with, you said the state of Oregon, is that right?
State of Oregon, correct.
Oregon Department of Justice.
Oregon
Yeah.
Department of Justice.
Right.
And you said they need to go back 5, but can only go back 3. Are we setting an unattainable goal?
That's something they're going to have to work out. They have to get in good standing, otherwise they can't act as a corporation.
Okay.
So they're going to have to get with DOJ and find out what they need to do to make those right, because they have to file their CT-12s, which is the state's version of the 990 that goes to the IRS. Basically, their taxes.
Yeah.
And then they have to pay their fees to DOJ in addition to the Secretary of State. And I'm not convinced that that's been done based on what I see on the websites for DOJ.
So clarifying question, are you wanting to call out specific documents, or are you okay with leaving it as a good standing or?
If it shows on the website that they're in good standing, then that's good. That means they filed their CT-12s.
Like, I'm coming at it at a novice. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
you pull it up and then it says
Yeah, if you go-
green for good, or
If
like,
you go to
sorry.
the Oregon Department of Justice charity search, put in Partners for Progress, you click on them and it'll show you their standing. And you can view the CT-12s that have been filed or not filed. So you can get the numbers that they've been submitting to the state. And it tells you right on the top line, not in good standing. If they're in good standing, it will say in good standing. And the only way you get in good standing is if you file proper CT-12s. Which has not, the last one they have on file is 2017.
Okay, so the 2 requirements are in good standing with the Department of Justice, and the second one was
The letter from
United Way.
United Way that's been approved by the IRS to act as their agent. Basically acting as a pass-through agent.
Do we have to have that, or can't they just have a letter from United Way showing that they're acting as the pass-through agent? I know that several
IRS has to approve
nonprofits
it.
do that.
Yeah, IRS has to approve that. They can get a temporary approval on that one in 36 hours.
Okay. I see, and I do see on the website where it says not in good standing. It's very clear, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation, that before we move forward with any funding, that we make sure that they're in good standing all the way around and that everything's set up properly. This is taxpayer money we got to be very, very careful with. And transparency has not been real transparent in the last several years.
So can we make that his motion?
She's writing it out.
Oh, good job, Michelle.
somebody tell me, and this is just because I've been looking at this online as well, so there's a Lebanon Downtown Association that hasn't been active since like 2015. Yeah. But
Yeah.
they call themselves the Lebanon Downtown Association, but it's based on the Partners for Progress.
Correct.
Okay.
It's almost like a public benefit.
They're doing it.
They're kind of
They're a DBA.
They're
so-
not actually a
Yeah,
DBA,
they
but
haven't registered the DBA.
no,
but
they're
it's
not, they're not a DBA, but they're acting like one.
Yeah.
They should probably just take the DBA because the other one is inactive and they could get it.
Yeah, they should, absolutely. There was an offer for them to meet with some folks that are very, very knowledgeable in the nonprofit industry, and that has not been acted on. That probably could have cleared a lot of this up.
Well, I know for me, that it's really hard to give any organization money, taxpayer money, when they've been out of compliance for so long.
Absolutely.
And, you know, if it was like a year, if they were out of compliance for a year, I'd be probably more forgiving and be like, hey, yes. But 2017, that's,
Yeah, the IRS
It's going on 6 years.
and DOJ give you 3 years before they revoke you. You have to be out of compliance that long.
you know, and I also want to put it on the public record that I agree with what the job of the Lebanon Downtown Association does. I agree with their goals and what they're trying to do. And I believe that Lebanon benefits from having that organization because we benefit from grants and other things they can bring in. But wow, it's a really big pill to swallow for being out of compliance for going on 6 years. I don't even know what the liability to the city with an organization like that. I don't know if they have liability because they're out of compliance. Yeah, I agree with the benchmarks that's in the agreement. You know, I hope there's a motion that we can move forward and get them to still work, but man, it's really hard for 6 years now. They've been out of compliance and it's just a big pill to swallow. So anyhow. Is there any motion to approve or deny?
She's editing.
Okay.
I think he's ready. He's ready. There you go. You want to add that?
Yeah. I would move to amend the contract to require LDA or Partners for Progress to also be in good standing with the Oregon Department of Justice before funds are released and provide a pass-through letter approved by the IRS to utilize a nonprofit status, in particular United Way.
Second.
The motion has been submitted and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion has passed. The amendment has passed.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know.
And I'd like to get a copy of the motion. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't know if this is an appropriate time, but I object to Pride Day. I absolutely oppose having them in Pride Day.
Let's bring that up in items from council at the end.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Move on to the next item number, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Can we get a motion then to approve the balance of the agreement as amended, just so that we can move that forward?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion is passed. Now, where was I?
9.
9, thank you. Council letter of support for the Lynn County Multi-Agency Coordination Group, or what we like to call MAC. Presenter is City Manager.
Thank you. The Lynn County MAC Group, which is a whole bunch of different entities, is working on developing a plan to acquire some of the state grant money associated with homelessness that if the state passes a budget, we might actually see. So actually, I should say, I think they've already appropriated the $26 million, but we'll see how that goes. We don't, as a city, we are not applying for any of the grant money. We don't have any programs or services that would be eligible for that money. but partner agencies are. I don't know if Crossroads is, but Helping Hands, Chance, CSC, just in Lynn County are all applying for money to add homeless beds, to add funding for some, I think, some tiny houses or a tiny house village in Albany. I think FAC is applying, or Sweet Home is applying for more money to expand the facility in Sweet Home. As part of that group, there is a request then for everybody in the county who's participating in the MAC group at least to sign on a letter of support. That is something that the state will look for in making determinations on grants, is that there is support not only from the entities getting those dollars, but from the entities that are I guess, encompassing. So they have asked for letters from us, as well as Lynn County, all of the agencies involved. So they've given us a draft letter, which is what's in the packet. I did not do a lot of modifications to what they suggested they were looking for. That seems to be the model that everybody else is using in terms of what they're turning in. So I thought I would bring that to this group and ask if you wanted to sign on, if you want to make any changes to that letter. Then we could have the mayor sign it, get it into their packet, which I think is due Friday.
Speak.
Do you know of any strings attached to this money?
Lots, lots.
There are a lot of strings, and the money in this go around is largely what I think of as hardware. So it's for adding beds, it's for building houses, it's not for
It is
services.
for building houses?
If you could build houses in the next year,
How about a dormitory?
if you could build a dormitory in the next year and you had something in the planning stage, then I think you could put in for that. But but at this point, you have to fill out all the paperwork by Friday and get it turned in. It is not money that is including what I think of in the grand universe. I don't know why I think of it this way, as the software. So it's not giving money for additional alcohol and drug addiction, any mental health, any wraparound services, any case management. Those are not being covered in this. It's really, the focus is to add 100 beds for shelter beds and 450 living units in the next year.
Without any money to support for what happens once you
Operations.
build them.
Yes,
Where
but
do you
that
pay
is,
for the operations, that's not included.
but those are the strings, and it's 26 million and a little bit more to be spread across 26 counties in the state of Oregon. It's not enough money for anybody to do anything.
It's enough for the governor to get all the other counties off her back.
Yeah, so it is where we are right now. I think still trying to get more money for more permanent housing and for services on an ongoing long-term basis. But again, some of the service funding that comes from the federal government now has been cut as part of the debt deal. And from the state is hanging out in budget bills that have not moved in the legislature. Whether they will move next week is anybody's guess. And if they don't, they're on a continuing resolution and everything is up in the air in terms of the operating money that has come. Community Services Consortium gets a lot of that and then hands it out to partner agencies that are doing the day-to-day work. But CSC's budget has been, basically looks like it's going to be significantly lower for next year. They've had extra
They're gonna lose
utility.
about 50% of their people.
They've had extra utility funding, so that's good through September. They've been helping customers pay water bills. That's never been offered in the past. What's been there has been help with electric and gas bills for low-income people. All of that is being cut. All of the money that's come out of ARPA, the rent assistance, the eviction assistance, all going away.
Switching topics-ish a little bit. I just want to be clear, we're okay with this, you're okay with this letter? I know it says in here, we believe these projects will benefit our community by filling an identified funding gap, et cetera, et cetera. The funding will be used immediately to create shelter beds, increase service coordination, and prevent those individuals on the verge of being unhoused to remain sheltered. I was particularly looking at the create shelter beds. We're talking county shelter. County, or are we talking
These are
city in this case?
within Lynn County.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
these are,
Yeah.
I think Chance is wanting to add on to their facility. I believe they've been talking about 100 beds, which that could potentially solve the state's problem. Helping Hands is looking for money to add some beds for their shelter. I think that's also what the Family Assistance Center is looking for in Sweet Home. We don't have a shelter operator in Lebanon, so we would not directly benefit from that. But I know that there are people who are currently sleeping in Lebanon who are on wait lists to get into an FAC micro shelter or to get into a shelter bed in one of the other facilities, but their beds are all full and they can't get in.
Some of them are sleeping on the sidewalk by the FAC.
I guess what I'm just getting at is being very specific that this is not necessarily creating shelter beds, or maybe it is, in Lebanon, but it's creating shelter beds with some of our partnering agencies in Lynn County.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it just might be something to consider
well,
in the
Some
writing of it,
some our
a
people-
friendly
some of our
amendment, so
people
to
can
speak. So,
Go to
yeah.
those facilities and get housed there.
I agree, 100%. I just feel like it should be very clear. That's all.
I've been
I
meeting
support the
with,
letter.
with multiple people on this issue. I'm not worried about the text of this letter so much. It's more for Lynn County to receive funding for their efforts. So, but the approval or denial is up to the council. So
I would move that we approve it. It's.
to me, the letter's pretty
I've
generic.
been on
really.
too many of these MAC calls. So, okay,
I'll second that.
yeah, approve, yeah.
So we have a motion to approve the letter. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm a no with the vote explanation that I just would prefer it be clear, crystal clear that these are county projects that we are supporting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Noted. Moving on, we already did 10. We're moving on to 11, renewal of the city attorney agreement with Morley Thomas Law Firm LLC, presented by myself and Nancy.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
so-
I was gonna ask him how hard he negotiated with himself.
Well,
Actually, we did have a meeting.
we did have a meeting and we beat him down. So what you'll see is that for next fiscal year, his contract amount remains the same, and then he's got $500 a month increases in the second and third year, in each of the second and third year of the contract. And we have bumped up a little bit his off retainer hourly rate. We don't use a lot of that in most years. Otherwise, the contract is really pretty much the same as it has been. And I think that sums up what I have to say about it.
Like I said, we met. There was only a couple changes to it. They were minimal changes. I move, or I can't say it should move, but I would approve this motion on this to renew. So
Were you able to talk him down a little bit?
no, he's an attorney.
Yeah, that's true.
So
We did offer him cinnamon rolls in exchange, so, you know.
is there any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion has been approved. Item number 12, city manager report. Nancy?
Okay, so I've got some highlights for you all. If you want to think back a week, Strawberry Festival, which was brilliant. We all really appreciate and enjoy everything that happens at Strawberry Festival, but I want to call out our police department put in 300 hours in the 4 days, Thursday to Sunday. Most of it overtime. Few people were on shift, but most of that was overtime. And I will speak for the chief saying, super happy that all of our trainees at DPSST came back and helped. And that really helped boost our force out on the streets. For those of you who went to the parade last year and then went to it this year, world of difference, not dumping buckets, probably 3 or 4 times the number of people. It was safe, a few minor arrests and scuffles, but no serious bad behavior. I'd also call out our public works crew who put in more than 400 hours, all on overtime. They started 3:30 in the morning, the day of the parade, and then back again the day after. They go through and clean the sidewalks, clean the streets, street sweeper runs down, and then afterwards to get all those candy wrappers and things picked up. So, not to mention the signage and directing traffic and everything else. None of that reflects work done leading up to the planning meetings in terms of working on how parade management, traffic management, public safety is going to work at the event, any of that. So lots of hours that the city puts in on that, a lot of phenomenal work. I'd highlight library summer reading starts tomorrow. The event tomorrow will be in the gazebo. It is a comedian stunt person thing, should be great, good fun. And we have gobs of kids already signed up for summer reading programs, so that should be great. I want to remind you all, when you adopted the Republic Services rate agreement, we asked them to come back at about the 6-month level and talk about whether or not service in the community has improved. They've been invited to come to your July meeting, so I want to make sure y'all are prepared. If you have comments or questions or want to talk with particular constituents about that, I know that they have had a couple of recycle events at the Public Works compound. I know that they have changed routes around town. I know that that did not necessarily go well when they send notice to the entity paying the bill, who may not tell tenants that the trash day has changed, but that seems to have worked through. I want to note in the resolution setting utility rates that we did at the last meeting, we had one typographical error and we missed an increase in the domestic wastewater fee for one line. And so I just wanted to notify you that is being treated as scrivener's error, and we are going forward with what the numbers should have been. The mayor already commented, I think, about today being Flag Day. I thought downtown looked great with all the flags. That was great. And then just a note, our city recorder is retiring on June 30th. I think you all know that. She's kind of easing out the door already. We are interviewing next week for city recorder candidates. So see what comes out of that. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Items from council. Wayne, you had something you wanted to say?
We are supporting the Downtown Association, and in effect, we are supporting Pride Day. I don't think that is a very large percentage of the population of this city, and I know that there's a lot of people that object to it. I don't think we should be supporting that. It comes across as a down your throat, we're going to force you to accept us, accept it this way. And it just absolutely blows my mind that we would even consider supporting such a thing.
Noted. Any comments? Any other comments?
Nope. I want to acknowledge that this month is Pride Month. In councilor comments, it's not lost on me that last year, the Pride Month was the month that broke the proverbial camel's back when it came to proclamations and resolutions. And it's June. I think it's important to recognize their enduring struggle for freedom, for justice, for equality, and for all of them to live openly and honestly and authentically in our community. So I have the opposite take, but I will note that LDA does apparently, I remember from the presentation, they had, I think, 2,500 or 3,500 marked as grants for that event. So it's not something I think we're actually giving money for directly. They're raising that on their own. So secondly, I'd still like to talk about this letter from, I see we still have members of LPD in the crowd. Can we discuss, I would like to know what's happened since. I mean, this letter is pretty
Can I make one request? Just for there to be
frustrating
a
to
certain
read.
level of caution.
Please.
I think we all respect the individuals that came and spoke. What I heard as a lawyer was grievance and lawsuit. So I just want to be very careful. Obviously, this council can make comments as they see fit, but also not to overstep into the administrative realm. But again, I'm just saying, just be cautious. I can't tell you what to say
Sure.
or not to say, but just recognize that, that potential, obviously, we all hope it doesn't get there, but that possibility is there.
I think focusing on maybe a past history as well as like what the solutions are moving forward, does that keep me in the realm of being okay? Or not
I
addressing
was also
piece by
interested if we
piece in
could just
here?
openly discuss how do we fix this? And what have we identified? Have we identified the actual cause of the accounting errors, not accounting errors, payroll errors? Is this stuff we can open?
Yeah, I think a discussion of the transition to, was it called ADT or whatever?
ADP.
ADP and what went wrong, what went right, just not specific to the issues, the specific issues that were raised regarding specific individuals and that kind of stuff.
The one, I will say this one last, I will let it go after this. The one thing that I did extremely not appreciate, and I hope that this is in my heart of hearts not true, that we said we would take them to small claims court over this. That is just really, that hurts. That is really frustrating, that we are at the point, if that was something that was said, that we have to essentially threaten with legal action of our police officers.
It has the
It's
trust
a little
broken down
ironic.
that much.
So with that, I will let the piece go and focus on the ADP
And
portion of it.
I did have one. The overpayment thing that this whole small claims court lien, how have we resolved that? I know there were some discussions. I never got any feedback on how that was resolved. So I don't know if that's safe to talk about or not.
I can say generally, I'm not exactly sure what the letter was referring to, but legally, there is no other way to recover an overpayment than to go outside. You can't force them to take it out of their future paychecks. And this is actually a very common issue in private employment situations. I hadn't seen it specifically. Apparently, there was previously an issue that I certainly don't recall, and maybe they discussed that with union counsel or something. But it's a common thing that I've dealt with as a labor attorney, and there is no way essentially to force recovery of an overpayment, no matter how small nor how big, other than by a separate action of saying you were overpaid, the contract, you were overpaid, and we are entitled to it. Now, whatever happened as far as whether I characterized as a threat or whatever, certainly my advice as an attorney is, we can't just turn around and take the overpayment out of anybody's checks. There's only one way basically to do it unless, without consent, and that would be either through a small claims or a civil action.
You said without consent. If they consent,
We're getting into an area where.
because I think that's what had
There may
happened
be an area where
previously.
there is some disagreement.
All of that aside, the fact that I'm learning about this from the union rather than my city manager is extremely frustrating to me. On the table, I'm putting that out. I feel like I should have known about this before I saw a group of police officers walk in here super angry and reading a 4-page letter talking about how mad they are with ADP. So that's not necessarily related to the ADP conversation, but I just want that on record. The communication is faulty here. So
On the payback part of that, I work for the city of Salem. I'm a firefighter. We have unique, I guess, payroll issues like the police do. We've been overpaid quite often over the years that I've worked there, and we've been offered like a repayment program, like $50 a pay period, or has that type of thing been offered to our police?
So let me see. I haven't spoken about this because the issue hasn't been resolved. We have met, we have traded emails. Actually, we traded a bunch of emails and then I asked for us to meet because I felt like trading emails, wasn't letting anybody explain what caused the problem, which was ADP was asked to create a new code in the system in late February. The first payroll in March, that code was in place. And when they created it, they changed calculations in some of the other codes. It affected people most who had, look at Brandon, make sure I got this right, who had leave time So they were taking vacation or sick leave, and they also were having some of these premiums and overtime, and it double and triple counted some of the costs. So we have various amounts that people were overpaid. People were notified that they were overpaid. They were given the opportunity individually to schedule, or as a group, to schedule meetings with Brandon to go over what the overpayment was, how that calculation was made, what amount was owed. They were given the opportunity to, you can pay it back all in one lump sum. You can do payroll deduction. We suggest it get resolved by the end of the calendar year because of taxes and tax year, but you know, it was going to be a matter of a conversation. And again, it depends upon whether or not you were overpaid $50 or $2,000. And we recognize it's a pocketbook issue. So when we met last week, there were several issues that were identified, including how the pay is shown on the pay stub. Brandon spent some time working on alternatives. So my response to the union on Friday was, we think we may have a different way to show pay on the pay stub that we think meets your needs. We need a couple of people who would volunteer. ADP doesn't have a test system. So we can only do this and produce a live check. So what we need is someone who's willing to go through that. Again, we have a calculator. We will double, triple, quadruple check that the pay is right. But if we can get the pay stub to read the way you want, does that solve one problem? The second problem is the repayment. The union has been clear, and the way the state rules work is we can do payroll deduction, but we have to have both the employee and the association's agreement. And the association at this point is withholding agreement. Don't know if employees would agree individually, but if the association withholds agreement, we can't do anything about it. And the third alternative then is to go to small claims court. And that is, frankly, that's the information that the union provided to us in terms of here was the Boley opinion. My understanding is there was some payroll error that was discovered in 2020. That was before I started here. I'm not sure what the background of that payroll error was. I will say that there have always been and will always be errors in the payroll process because it is human beings doing things. The errors that I have seen coming through, with the exception of this one that was a programming error, but the ones that I have seen coming through this year have been, I entered my time wrong and I got paid for 45 minutes instead of 12 hours. I see those emails come through to Brandon. Got it. I see where that happened. Do you want that corrected today or do you want it on your next paycheck? What's your choice? My supervisor in reviewing time changed my callback to overtime. It should have been callback. I see that. Do you want me to make that correction today or do you want it on your next paycheck? We have had people who have mostly been underpaid, and those get addressed immediately. And yes, we did have an employee last week whose direct deposit did not go through. I don't know if you have discovered yet the problem, if it was an account number or bank routing number. Brandon printed a check. Brandon drove it to the employee so that he was in funds on payday, right? So we're doing everything we can to make sure that employees are paid appropriately. From my perspective, the shift to biweekly, when you're talking about employees who are subject to overtime, and this is true for everyone who's not an exempt employee, when you pay a salary at 173.33 hours a month, you kind of make the system work really hard in the background to figure out how much they owe you for overtime, because there are no months where if you worked all of your work schedule, you would work 173.33 hours. You work 168, you work 182, you work 174, but you never work 173.33. And so the system tries to figure out how to pay you overtime. Now, we have case law and decisions from Boley that have said things, this is not true for Teamsters, but the employer is responsible to make sure employees get a 30-minute break, lunch break. Teamsters have paid lunches because there are too many times you sit down, you take a bite of your sandwich, and you're on a call and you're gone. But for other employees, we have to know that they are getting 30 minutes, not 29 minutes, 30 minutes for that lunch break. We've had a case now decided, I think it was at district court against Home Depot, that you can't round. So standard practice, and this has been true for the 40 years I have been working, if you clock in 7 minutes or less early, you clock out 7 minutes or less late, you got paid your 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever. The court came out and basically said over a career, that 7 minutes could add up to hours of pay. So you now have to pay to the minute. Now, our Teamsters contract calls for them in your schedule. You have a schedule 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you clock in at 5:55 in the morning, we owe you 5 minutes of OT. And it's easier for the system, frankly, to calculate that 5 minutes if it's calculating it on an hourly rate as opposed to a salary rate. And we are trying really hard to pay people correctly. And we have a workforce, if you'll pardon the expression, that busts its butt all day, every day. And I want to be sure those people are being paid for the time that they're working. And I want to be sure they're paid accurately. So we are doing our level best to do that. We changed from an accounting manager to a payroll specialist. That person has a lot of experience with payroll and payroll law. She has a lot of experience with ADP. She is working on trying to make the system better, to make the pay stubs, as we have them currently configured, more readable. So if it shows AC for 1.3 hours, what does that mean? That's becoming clearer, I believe, on the stubs in terms of trying to get those things spelled out. She is every 2 weeks with payroll, she is taking every Teamsters member's hours submitted through the payroll system, entering them into spreadsheets for that individual to make sure if you had FTO assigned this month, or this pay period, you had your longevity was calculated correctly, your OT was calculated correctly, your cash outs were calculated correctly, all of that to say what ADP is paying you matches this set of manual calculations we have double checked against. Okay, next person up, we're double checking to make sure we get it right every month. All of which is to say, we can only work off of the data that comes in, and if you didn't clock in on Friday and you didn't report hours on Friday, we don't know you worked Friday, you're not going to get paid for Friday. As soon as you tell us, oops, I missed, we're going to get that fixed and you're going to get paid for it. So I am not aware of systemic issues that have made payroll incorrect over a long period, over months and months and months. And I've not had anybody who has come in other than we had this event in 2020, now we have this event in 2023. From my perspective, we knock ourselves out to pay someone correctly if we have underpaid as soon as we possibly can. Brandon has taken care of stuff when he's on vacation. And I guess I feel like if we have overpaid you and we discover that, and we are going to give you 6 months now to pay that back, then you ought to be paying that back. That seems like a fair way to work this, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. And if the association doesn't agree to employees being able to say, I would like to do this payroll deduction, then we will have no choice. It's taxpayer money. We will have no choice but to pursue small claims court, because that's the only avenue open to us if there's no agreement for payroll deduction.
Well, respectfully, it wasn't human error in March that put us in the union for a pay period with our measly $100 and some paychecks and then pulled us out the following month. That wasn't human error. And then the second piece, part of the solution sounds like we're asking 2 to 4 officers to volunteer as test dummies for a system that they are saying hasn't worked. I don't know that that solves the problem either. Basically, they're saying, I'm willing to sign up to have this happen to me again and again until we, the city, can get it right. Is that a mischaracterization?
It is, because if we changed their codes and it didn't calculate correctly, we would change back to, okay, that didn't work. Let's go back to what we've got now. Let's double count, double check, and make sure that we're paying you correctly. And we'll take another stab at, is there a way for us to get ADP to show your time in on your pay stub differently, that shows it, and all I have to go on as based on the conversation, I sent a spreadsheet and said, I think what you said you wanted to see is what's in blue shading here. I don't know that that's true. I've not gotten any response back from the union until tonight when they came here. So I don't know if my perception of what they want to see on a pay stub is really what they want to see on a pay stub, or if there is something different that they want to see. I think Brandon and I are both committed to working through as much as we can with ADP to get the pay stub showing what the union would like it to show, but that is going to require someone from the union sitting down with us and being very clear. I want this calculation to show in this way. And then we can work through it and say, can we have ADP show that? And that just is going to require more than what I heard in the meeting last week.
I'm going to add one more thing. Last month when this came, when we were talking about pay issues, or I'd heard about pay issues, I reached out to other people. OSP uses Workday to track hours. LFD uses CrewSense. Benfire, guess who I called for that one, uses Telestaff and Timekeeper. All of those are, I think, really specific to first responders and their weird pay differentials of, well, I worked overtime or double overtime or a special assignment. I don't know what they all are. I assume there's a longevity thing in there, but I don't know that ADP is set up for handling all of these. And I'd only called 3 people or reached out to 3 people, but none of them use it. So that's also a little bit concerning, like how, I don't know. I just want to put that last piece out.
And I will say the cities that I have spoken with, worked with over my career have all used a variety of different tools for calculating payroll. Usually it's associated with their enterprise resource planning software, their financial system. I will say that all of those systems are routinely hated. And I have not found anyone where I have never seen payroll calculated correctly for everyone on a pay period in any of the systems. There are always, again, there are always human errors. Some of them are better at time entry. Some of them are better at calculating payroll with lousy time entry. It's part of what we had with Springbrook was time entry was basically you sat down and put down, I worked my 8 hours today or my 12 hours today. And so we weren't capturing, I clocked in 10 minutes early and we weren't capturing that kind of information. So part of what we're trying to do is get to a higher level of accuracy in that.
Okay. This disturbs me on many, many levels. I will say that. This is not our first dance with ADP. What was it, 2011? 2012, the city tried ADP and it failed miserably. I'm wondering what ADP brought to the table this time that made it different. Something you said jumped out at me. We started this in January. Yet in February, we were having to go back and reinvent the program. So what didn't we do the months leading into this to make sure that this system was going to work as close to perfect as we could? And how responsive is ADP to your request for information or change?
So I'll address both points. I think the first thing that I would address is the hardest thing about the system, getting it situated the right way, is ADP doesn't have any testing ability. So when your testing ability is you running a payroll
Live fire.
2 days before. It's live fire.
Yeah.
And so we did our level best with the consultants that they provided us to establish the system in the right manner. We are going through and making revisions to ensure that there is continued, at this point, accuracy in what we're doing. And I say continued because since this problem was identified, we've fixed this issue and continued to improve the software with our new consultant, the new account manager, to ensure that we're getting everything out of the system and it calculating correctly. As far as the response time, we have a couple of things. Our payroll specialist now and our new account manager at ADP have regular, almost daily conversations now. And we also have a scheduled, apparently, I just learned this today, a scheduled meeting with that account rep every Thursday to address any tickets that are existing on the docket.
So basically, we went into this not knowing if it was going to work or not because they had no way to test, is what you're telling me?
ADP's business practice is that everything will work the first time around. And so you have 2 days basically before testing. And we have identified certainly shortcomings, yes, but we have addressed those in our move. I can tell you right now that the last 3 payrolls since this issue have been correct. What we have missed is if a paper form wasn't turned in, or if we had one instance in which somebody was paid at straight overtime rate because a schedule wasn't input into the system. So there are still learning opportunities, I think, across the board, but those are not system related. Those are
Human errors thing.
Yeah.
But, so we went into this basically saying, we hope it's going to work because our system says it'll work without knowing whether it'll work because they have no way to test it. Right?
Yes.
Okay. That seems kind of slack-eyed and silly, but that's just me
So-
thinking out loud.
So I think one of the elements that we haven't talked about, there, and that is trying to do this within a microscopic budget and trying to find something that works with what we can afford. And before I started, IT and the finance director had been looking at a new financial system in large part because of these kinds of errors and problems that we were having with our financial system at the time. And ultimately came to, we don't have $1 million to put into a piece of software, which is kind of what it was coming down to. And so we are working with small budgets and what we can afford to do as an organization.
I get that.
And that is, you know, the ADP is a very good product and it is within our budget.
I get that. I don't remember it being brought out to council that we had this problem, that there was a money issue or that we needed to change, or even mentioned as part of a report for us to
It
look
was
at.
in a city, it was in a city.
I would say it was in the city manager's report from Human Resources. We probably spent 6 to 9 months talking about it.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that.
Internally about,
Not in here.
No, it was
No,
in the
not
city
here.
manager's
not in
report,
here.
like a line each for
Yeah.
a couple months.
A line every couple months, okay.
Yes.
The other thing that disturbs me is from what I hear and what I'm seeing is kind of a fractured communication system between City Hall and the police hall.
yes.
And how are we going to fix that? Because there's got to be levels of trust from both sides for this to work. Otherwise, it won't work. We won't talk to each other. We'll talk past each other. So what do we need to do? Someone tell me, because this can't go on like this.
I agree, and I think we have been trying. We've talked at length with the union about trying to put in place a labor management team, much as what we have with AFSCME, to try and work through issues. I think we have not made any headway there in terms of trying to get to a more informal communication method to talk about issues as they come up. And so that, which is where, you know, this conversation could have started, was with that. And then I think that we do have communication challenges within the organization. Information that may be shared in one place and expected to be shared beyond that is not always shared, either up or down.
I'm not sure what that means.
Information I share with Frank may not get shared with staff, and information from staff may not get shared with me. So either up or down, I think, and we're talking about police, I think that is true in several places in the organization.
Yeah, I don't think that's just the police.
No, that's why I said it's several
Yeah.
places in the organization.
So how do we fix it?
I'm working on that.
I'll buy a verb.
I gave you working. I don't know what more you want.
I would like updates. I mean, moving forward on what the solution is. I put it out for that at least.
Okay?
Yeah, we can't keep going like this. And we really need to make sure that the cops are getting paid properly. And somebody talk to somebody else about how to handle the debt.
If I could, I think our goal is that everybody is paid appropriately, and that's including the cops. That is a goal of our department, certainly, and this is not a position that I like any of us in this room or in the back of the room right now to be in. And I will make that blatantly clear. This is not what I want for finance or payroll or any of that. And it is certainly, it's on us, it's on me for the fact that we are in this boat right this second. But we're doing everything possible to rectify that and to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
I just wonder how much of this could have been avoided had we spent all this time that we're spending now in advance of to get it straightened out. Maybe had those safeguards in place ahead of time, the 5 Ps. So,
I know from my standpoint, like, it was bounced around tonight, the union aspect of it, which I have no experience with at all. So, but I will say this, that once this was brought to my attention, that we talked about this and we implemented, or, we talked about implementing certain actions right then, auditing, we also seen that there was some missteps at the beginning when they implemented this thing. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. There was. One of them was formal training on the system for employees. The transitional team, there was that aspect. And there was a few others. And I'm not going to say that it was done on purpose or they were during this process, people were incompetent. I'm not going to go there, but I will say that there's lessons learned when you transition from one system to another. And I know from my background, pay is a very serious thing, and it was taken very serious once it was brought to my attention. And that, from military aspect, you don't screw with soldiers' pay. It's just that simple. And, so I know once it was brought to my attention, action was taken right then, to alleviate the burden on officers, to find out what the problems were and fix them, to come up with new procedures on preventing it from happening again. Just simple things like the coding on pay slips. There was never, ever a legend for the new coding published, as far as I know. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and point dirty end of the stick at people. I'm going to say that these were the missteps. We're finding measures to correct them and to move forward. And of course, produce that list of lessons learned that you will never do these things ever again when you transition any process that we have in city government. So like I said, I don't know if I'm stepping over the bounds on what I'm saying or not. I hope that we find a resolution to this when it comes to the overpayments. And that I know that City Hall is working very hard on fixing this and preventing it from happening again. So with that, that's all I have to say, I guess.
yeah, my biggest concern right now, and I appreciate the work that you've done. my biggest concern is getting the trust built back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between City Hall and the cop shop and everybody else. It's got to be there for us to operate efficiently.
Agree. Any other comments?
I have a couple. I'll make them quick. I know it's late. I was contacted by a resident who's trying to put an 80 accessory dwelling unit in her garage, do a remodel and add a studio type apartment. And I guess it sounds like she's going to have to pay up to around $10,000 in SDC fees. It's a 468 square foot garage. So I agreed with her. That seems like a lot. So I contacted Kelly. She kind of ran through how it worked up to that. And I guess I'm looking for a solution for us. I know we've been working for months on the housing production strategy, how to basically increase affordable housing. And this seems like a really easy one to adjust the SDC fees. Let's see if I can say that fast. SDC fees. I don't know, as a council, we could come up with based on square footage, based on or giving exemptions for this small of unit. I don't know, something for us to have in the back of our minds. I know that we could wait and solve this with the housing production strategy, but I don't want to move at the pace of government on this if someone's waiting to add, a room that'd be available to people to rent. And it sounds like there may be more than just one or two people running into this thing throughout the city.
Yeah.
So I'd like to come up with something sooner rather than later to be able, I guess, to make them affordable for people to do.
We had discussed that last year about the fees coming down on the ADUs.
Yeah. Long story short, I'm gonna be working with Kelly. I'm gonna get some more background information on this particular application and kind of get it broken down. And I'll try and guess keep you guys in the loop and maybe have a solution that we can make a decision on.
Hey, Ward 3, can you keep me in the loop too? Thanks.
You're on it. And the final one, a lot of people we'd had a lot of public comments about the library tonight. I also want to reiterate, I'm not for censorship or banning books. And it didn't sound like anyone who came here was. I want to be able to go in the library and walk over to the adult section and read like the back cover of a book by Obama or Hillary or Thomas Sowell. Anyone, I want to be able to, I want my kids, I shouldn't have to hover over them to protect them from that graphic of information at the library. I think we could all agree, based on what was read tonight, that what we say is in the youth sex education is far more graphic and borderline obscene than what we grew up with is our sex education. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It has progressed to new levels. Some of that stuff, is very adult. However, if they want to keep that in a youth, I guess, sexual education, maybe make that less accessible to smaller kids who just, as a parent, they're not ready for that. And I'm not saying I'm going to let my kid check out that book, but if I'm over here, I got a kid over here, and a kid over here, and one of them slips that out, it only takes a quick opening for them to be exposed to something that they should never be exposed to as a 10 or even a 12 or 13-year-old. Just my 2 cents. So I hope that through the process, there can be some resolution to that in the library.
I agree. I don't have a problem with doing something like that as opposed to banning books, because that's a slippery slope you don't go
No,
down.
I don't think anyone.
And
wants to
I
ban
will
books.
tell you, as one of only 2 people in this room that remember the 60s, yes, they were that graphic in 5th grade. Yeah.
You're not the.
And
only
I'm
two.
open for pushback. That's my personal feeling is that
Trying to be nice.
youth sexual ed is way different than it's ever been. It's very adult sex ed, and to have that accessible to small children is I guess dangerous, I think.
I don't disagree with you in the least, but the people that lived in 1850 would say the same thing about my stuff in the 1960s. It's all generational, unfortunately. But I don't disagree that stuff could not be located
Yeah, the library shouldn't
more
be
secluded.
shouldn't be a place where I have to hover over
Yeah.
kids if they're in the kids department. That's all I'm saying.
And I got to be careful because I'm married to a retired librarian. So,
Hey, more power to them.
yeah.
I support our librarians.
On the library thing, I mean, it was even mentioned in here that, oh, parent or guardian has to be with the minor in order for them to get the library card.
Yep.
Once they get it, what parent or guardian is going to be like, no, you can't go to the library because I'm busy? No, they're going to let their kid go to the library and get some books to read during the summer, and they may come home with something that the parent was not expecting.
They may, and then the parent can take it away from them.
And if you put it on a top shelf or you put a label on it that's red, they absolutely will. I was one of those
Looking for it.
kids. I'm 100% sure of it. Like, oh, I'm not supposed to have this. That's the quickest way to have those books. When I talked to Kendra, she said one of the books had been checked out one time in the years it has been there. The kids that need it, and the kids that don't are like, I don't need this, and they move on to whatever it is that interests them. I think that's my biggest thing with it. I guess if we have to put it on a top shelf, then okay, but kids are gonna look for it. They're gonna look. So, yeah.
I was just say, I recall from my youth when the instructions to parents were, you need to put the book you really want your kid to read on the top shelf. Maybe hide it behind the other books on the shelf, because they'll find that one to see what it is that you're hiding from
They
them.
wanna see what
And
you're
then they'll
hiding.
read it.
Right next to my dad's liquor supply.
There's a reason banned books or any books that are removed from circulation, they explode because all of a sudden people want to read them. It'll be the same thing with kids in the books. If one book was checked out like one time over the course of so many years, it means that one kid probably actually needed or felt that they needed that. Or he got it by mistake. I don't know. It's not a book that interests me. So,
Any other comments from council?
no.
Okay. Public or press comments? Come forward, please.
I know it's late, everybody, but before you go home, just want to compliment and commend the community, the Strawberry Festival this year. The peacekeeping force was amazing. The grounds force was awesome. We had over 5,000 volunteer hours from our board, which is a 40-person board. We had over 100 volunteers from the community come forward to help us put this thing on. They put on over, I don't have all the numbers yet, but almost 2,500 hours worth of volunteer time just in those 7 days. Saw many of you there, and we saw more people in front of our stage this year than we've ever seen, from what I understand. And it was, parking and entrance, and we suffered our regular challenges that we all suffer from a festival this size. But given that this festival is still, which I would love to see change, but it's still the only festival of this size in this state that's run by 100% volunteers, it's a feat. And this community came together and put on a wonderful festival, as Miss Nancy said. I wish more people were here to hear that. But the parade, which I haven't seen the parade in 5 years, because I'm always there on grounds. But I hear it was, triple people deep, and more, wonderful floats. So just want to thank the community for putting this on. I want to thank the city for the work that they did in making it a fantastic event. And I challenge some of you to either become a board member or find someone in your area to become a board member, because we're always looking for new board members and new committee members. And it was just a wonderful event. So I just want to put that out there, and congratulations to the city of Lebanon and our surrounding communities for helping us put this on. Good night, everybody. You guys
Thank
have a
you.
good night.
It was an excellent event. I went out to it and enjoyed every second of it. The parade, I think a little bit of COVID, but man, there was a ton of people at the parade route, and the festival was pretty hopping. So
We got rained on last year, so it was not just
Yeah.
the pandemic, but pandemic and rain and cancellation. So it was a pretty good event, and we thought it was fantastic. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to you. I saw the photo of all the volunteers, all of them that made it happen. Thank you.
Mr. Trahan, did you have another comment?
Briefly,
Yes.
I do represent the Lebanon Police Association and somewhat Teamsters also in this matter. whatever amount it may be that was overpaid, it's not our money. We don't want it. We don't want to keep it. We want to figure out what that is and then appropriately give it back.
Perfect.
All righty, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Any other public comments or press? Press, no? Okay. Next scheduled council meeting will be June 28th, 2023, 5 PM. It's going to be an exciting one, special session. And after that, it'll be July 12th, 2023, 6 PM, regular session. This